Imagine being a fat guy who can never lose weight. His name was Siwoo. Since he was young, he ran 20 kilometers. He followed Saitama's training. He trained to the limit. He ate as little as possible. But even so, his body fat never went down, so he was rejected by girls. One day, he is summoned to another world infested with monsters because Siwoo inherited the goblin bloodline. Now, to survive, he'll have to go to the extreme and become muscular, but his life wasn't always like this. Late in the afternoon, the final school bell rings. Caught by surprise, she asks what he just said. He repeats himself, confessing that he really likes her. Then he reveals that he's liked her since the first time he saw her. Standing in the classroom, he says his feelings have never changed. Hearing his confession, she covers her mouth with her hand and stays quiet. While waiting for an answer, he keeps staring at the girl. Lowering his head, he apologizes for saying something she hates. Reacting immediately, she denies it and says she could never hate him. Looking at him, she starts to say that she thinks he's really nice. She adds that he's thoughtful and fun too. Then she asks why she would ever hate someone like him. After a pause, she starts to say something else, but hesitates. The scene changes. Outside, some students are playing a game. Near the basketball court, another student was standing alone. Getting up, his friend approaches and asks how things went. Walking right past him, the boy just says to forget it. Then his friend puts an arm around his shoulder, saying he figured as much. With teary eyes, he says she told him she wants to focus on her studies. But his friend says it's an excuse since he's never seen her with a book. Lowering his head, he starts to wonder why he's like this. Just then, a soccer ball flies toward them at high speed. With a quick move, he reaches out his hand and stops the ball in midair. Right after, the players run over, apologizing and asking if they're okay. While holding the ball, he asks out loud why he is this way. Looking at him, his friend replies that he'd also really like to know the answer. Reminding him, his friend says he doesn't hate sports and is actually good at them. He also mentions that he controls everything he eats at every meal. Then he comments that if people on diets did half of what he does, the world would only have fit people. His friend then suggests he see a doctor, but he says he already has. His friend asks what the doctor said, and he explains they told him it's most likely genetic. Arriving home, he opens the door and enters his apartment alone. Once inside, he stares at the photos and repeats the word genes to himself. Looking at the portraits, he says he wishes that were true. Holding his parents' photo, he thinks that at least he could finally give up. He looks at his mother and comments on how beautiful she was and still is. Running his finger over the photo, he explains that he never got to meet his father. But holding the picture, he says he's heard all about his story. In a flashback, it's shown that his father was a famous Korean fighter. Even with a short career, his records and his strength were impressive. According to his mother, he gained muscle without even trying. Back in the present, he just mutters to himself, "What a day." Then turning around, he seems to make a decision and says, "All right then." Lighting the stove, he decides he's going to forget the diet because it doesn't work. Opening the fridge, he complains that years have passed with no change. He then thinks about eating a lot before the stress gets to him. With an intense look, he stands still for a moment in silence. Holding the package, he squeezes it tightly between his fingers, but in the end, his meal turns out to be just a single tomato on a fork. Sitting at the table, he begins to eat his salad in a disciplined manner. Later that night, he goes out for a run on the city's bike path. Completely out of breath, he keeps pushing himself to not stop running. Looking at his phone, he checks the distance he's run so far. As he ran, the app notified him that he was faster than usual. With the girl in mind, he yells that he will never give up on his goal. Stopping, exhausted, he sees on his phone that he's broken a new record. Trying to catch his breath, he says he pushed himself too hard this time. Looking around, he wonders where he is, saying he doesn't recognize the neighborhood. Deciding to check the map, he takes out his phone to find his location. Suddenly, a voice from above says he's pretty fast. The mysterious man then adds that it must be in his blood. Without any warning, the old man simply leaps down from above toward him. The forceful landing leaves the boy stunned. Knocked to the ground, the boy asks if the old man is okay after the jump. Telling him not to be scared, the man introduces himself as Mangtae. Right after, he reveals that he is actually the great judge of that place. Mangtae explains that he takes care of all the demons that exist throughout Korea. Seeing the young man's reaction, he realizes the boy has no idea what he's talking about. Being direct, he grabs the boy and tells him to come with him. With one move, the old man suddenly throws him onto a cloth. Shaking his cloak, the man reveals a completely different scene to the boy. Falling to his knees, he tries to understand what's happening around him. Lifting his gaze, he stares at the new and bizarre place where he has appeared. Before him, a vast and strange world is revealed for the first time. Mangtae then welcomes him, saying this is the demon realm. Telling him to look around, the old man points to the view ahead. Below them, various creatures are moving, and he explains that they are all demons. He then adds that those creatures are the inhabitants of this realm. Mangtae says that humans used to worship them, but now see them as mere superstition. He then explains that every 666 years, a festival is held to choose the new king. Every demon species in the world must send a young candidate to the festival. Going back in time, he talks about a demon king who reigned over all. In a glimpse, the figure of that ancient and powerful king is shown. Just as he's about to continue, Mangte is interrupted by the boy shouting for him to wait. Saying he gets the gist of it, he asks what any of this has to do with him. Repeating the rule, the old man says that each species needs a candidate for the festival. Then he reveals that the boy is the only one who has inherited goblin blood. He explains that he's only the 4th or 5th generation with the bloodline. Trying to back away, the boy says he must have gotten the wrong person. Looking up, he flinches as he sees something coming toward him. Suddenly, a huge creature lands violently right in front of the young man. Frozen in place, he hears Mangte say they're going to do a little test. Staring at the boy, the monster tells the old man to keep his word about this. Mangte then confirms that he will if the monster emerges as the grand victor. Finishing the sentence, he says the monster will be allowed to devour him. At this, the creature says it won't let the chance to taste him slip away. Seeing the monster advance, the boy tries to shield himself on the ground. With a swift move, the creature leaps and prepares a devastating punch. Then it hits the boy square on, sending him flying with the blow. Hurled through the air, he is thrown with great force against the ground. The impact of his body on the ground creates a small crater. From a distance, the monster says they won't let a human participate in the festival. Mangte then warns him to prove his worth if he wants to stay alive. Lying on the ground, he cries out that he's in a lot of pain. Looking up, he sees the monster's shadow coming to attack. In an agile move, the monster grabs him and slams him against the ground. The monster complains that he's tougher than expected. Then it warns that having fun is part of tenderizing him for the meal. Extending its hand, the monster prepares for the next attack. With its mouth open, it lunges forward to crush the boy once and for all. Then it strikes the ground with all its might, kicking up a lot of dust. From a distance, Mangte just watches the sequence of brutal attacks continue. Continuing the offensive, the monster repeatedly punches the ground, unable to stop. But as it raises its hand, it realizes it missed its target. On top of its arm, the boy reappears completely unexpectedly. Thinking of the goblins, Mangte says their skills were almost infinite. At that moment, the boy brings his hands to his own jacket and rips it open. With his body transformed, he holds the monster's arm above his head. Mangte then reveals that their main weapon was the games they loved to play. Without needing to learn, the skill was already instinctively etched into his body. Gathering all his strength, he manages to lift the creature's entire arm. Looking up, he strains to hold all that weight. With an incredible move, he throws the monster to the ground using goblin wrestling. Applying the technique, he slams the monster into the ground with all his might. With the impact, a cloud of dust covers the site of the great battle. As he stands near the fallen enemy, he appears to be just a human. Catching his breath, he takes a deep breath after all that effort. But then, his true identity is revealed. He is, in fact, a half-goblin. Back to his routine, he was standing outside a shop. Inside, his friend asks what happened at the end of the story. Sipping his juice, he says that nothing happened and it all ended right there. Remembering the fight, he explains it was all just a very strange dream. Sitting at the table, he denies it was fun, saying he got beaten up badly. But his friend questions him about the move, since dreams can reflect reality. His friend reminds him that he didn't know how to fight, a point he has to concede. Talking about the dream, he says he felt as if he had always known how to fight. He then claims he could do it all again right now if he had to. Laughing at the situation, his friend tells him not to get carried away. Crushing the juice box, he mentions it must be because of stress. Looking at his body, he says that not even in a dream could he have changed so quickly. Suddenly, he sees his body completely transformed again and panics. Not understanding a thing, he looks down and sees his new physical form. Then a voice calls him, and when he turns, he faces the person standing there. Walking with a girl, Mangte explains that he fainted and just woke up. Looking around, he finally realizes that none of it was a dream. With a bruised face, he stares at the new scenery with grim seriousness. Lying nearby, the monster he had fought remained utterly defeated. Next to the creature, he watches it scream in pain on the ground. Sitting on the ground, he wonders how he's going to get back home now. From a distance, Mangte turns to the girl and asks for her opinion of him. Answering him, she says he was a huge disappointment to her. After watching him, she describes them as pathetic and foolish creatures. She then asks Mangte if he's sure about the goblin blood, but he insists she saw how he fought, which she denies. Looking at the monster, she claims it was just a display of brute force. She adds that he only managed to win with great difficulty in the end. Approaching the two, the boy finally manages to interrupt their conversation. Stating he has proven himself, he asks if he can go home now. Looking at him, Mangte says he will repeat his verdict. Commenting on the turn of events, the crowd seemed quite shocked by the whole situation. Seeing the fallen monster, They comment that it was defeated in a single blow. The chatter among them was that the descendants of the goblins were still alive. Near the monster, he was trying to catch his breath after the tough fight. As the boy caught his breath, Mangte slowly approached him through the middle of the arena. Banging his staff on the ground, he announces that he will give his final verdict. Pointing at the boy, he officially declares him a demon. Hearing this, the boy gasps and asks if there are any objections. With the decision made, he orders the news to be spread throughout the peninsula. Among the demons, the news of a goblin's appearance was quite exciting. Explaining his action, Mangte says that no one will be able to hurt him without reason anymore. Trying to understand, the boy asks once more if he can go, but the girl calls him an idiot and says that he's a demon now. Crossing her arms, she explains that he can't return to the human world. Turning to Mangte, he swears he's never caused trouble for anyone before. At this, Mangte says he doesn't understand the situation and leaves him no choice. Threatening the boy, Mangte says he'll have to kill him to solve everything. Reacting to the threat, he leaps backward to gain some distance. Completely confused, he asks what is happening right at that moment. Realizing the distance, he sees he jumped much farther than he thought possible. Landing, he looks back in the old man's direction. From afar, Mangte asks if he's finally starting to get the hang of it. On his knees, he is told that his body is now that of a demon. Then Mangte explains that goblins are strong, and he is 10 times stronger. According to him, a normal human body would have been crushed by so much power. Saying he understands, he hears from Mangte that he only needs to wait 6 months. Surprised, he learns that the 500-year law was created by the last king. Going back 66 years, a man was running through a dark forest at night. Back then, demons were free to roam the human world. Running through the forest, a man trips and falls with no hope of escape. Lying on the ground, he could only tremble in fear at the sight of the creature. Before him, a giant centipede appears. Turning towards him, the creature stares at him for a brief moment. With nowhere to go, the man could only weep in pure despair. But suddenly, another demon appears. According to legend, they could trust the demons who were quite friendly. Even while protected, the man still felt immense fear of the situation. Thus, humans had felt both fear and adoration for them for 666 years. After the festival, the new demon king was not pleased with that situation at all. Creating a new law, he forbade demons from harming humans. Because of this, humans forgot about them and now see them as mere folklore. But Mangtai warns that this will soon end, as the king will be dethroned. He explains that the demons have waited 666 years for this moment. On the so-called Night of the Demons, they will all cross into the human world. Hearing his options, he asks how and where he can learn his new abilities. He then questions how strong he would become among the other demons. Seeing his new resolve, Mangte asks what made him change his mind. Answering the question, he says he wants to ensure the safety of a few people. Remembering his mother and his friend, he knew he had to protect them all. Stating that his blood is strong, Mangte says he will be able to protect them. Adding a possibility, he says that as king he could create new laws. But the girl says there's no way someone like him could survive the festival. Almost forgetting, Mangte apologizes for the late introduction between the two. Introduced as Seolhwa, she says it's not necessary since she won't see him again. Then she reminds Mangte of his promise about a qualification test for her. Explaining her situation, Mangte says she also wants to go to the human world. Confused, the boy remembers he just had to wait, but she asks him not to take too long. Complaining about the need for a test, she says she's better than many other demons. Agreeing with her, he says she also needs patience and self-control. Saying she understands, she hopes it's not another excuse to postpone everything. Walking away, he warns that he doesn't have time for her tantrums with the festival so close. Stopping them both, he says it's her lucky day for a test. Explaining the plan, he says the boy is the perfect opportunity for her. Not believing what she's hearing, she begs him not to say what she thinks he's about to. He then gives her 1 month to teach the boy the basics of being a demon, on the condition that if she succeeds, the two of them can go together. Reacting to the proposal, she yells that he can't be serious. Pointing at the boy, she says it's impossible to teach him anything in just 1 month. Keeping his cool, he simply says that if she insists on refusing the offer, seeing she has no choice, she claims that 1 month or 6 wouldn't make a difference. Leaving the decision to her, he warns that the offer is time-sensitive. Just then, a portal begins to open nearby. Mangte says she should bet on the boy, and Mangte leaves through the portal. Turning to the boy, she says she's going to ask even though she already knows the answer. She then asks if he has any idea what demonic energy is. Sighing, she answers herself that of course he wouldn't know. At that moment, his eyes widen as he sees something appear behind her. Behind the girl, the monster from before reappears without any warning. Pointing past her, the creature warns that the boy is his. Ignoring her, The monster asks where Mangtae is because the fight isn't over. Looking at him, Seolhwa scoffs and asks what his problem is. Getting close to the monster, she says this is why his species is so looked down upon. Trembling with rage, the creature glares at her and tries to say something. The monster then charges at her with full force, starting a new fight. Meanwhile, a narration explains that there are no critical differences among humans, but the explanation concludes by saying that demons differ by species and bloodline. Potential and abilities ultimately create a clear class difference among demons. With the extinction of the goblins, opinions vary on which species now reigns supreme. Seeing the paralyzed monster, she ironically asks if there's something wrong with it. With a smile on her face, she reveals the name of the most powerful species. Revealing her tale, Seolhwa dares him to continue the fight right now. Behind Seolhwa, the demon Big Mouth appears, completely immobilized by magical chains. Even facing this surreal scene, Seo Choi remains silent, watching everything. He knows that being paralyzed by shock wouldn't help at all in this situation. Turning to the boy, she asks if he can see what's happening. She begins to explain that this is demonic magic, which consumes demonic energy. Continuing the lesson, she says there are two types of magic, inherent and acquired. She then mentions that a goblin's fighting ability is an innate power of their species. Acquired magic, on the other hand, is different, as any demon can use it with training. Pointing to Big Mouth, she uses him as an example of someone who neglected their training. With disdain, she says he is the perfect example of a classless being. After explaining, she tells him she's going to teach him, but wants to make something clear. Looking at him seriously, she says she hates useless work and recommends that he give up. She also warns that the challenge might be too great for a former human. Seo Choi then replies that he'll do whatever it takes to keep up with her training. Seeing his determination, she hears him say he needs to learn, telling her not to worry about him. With a smile, she says the chance is small, but it's better than nothing. Then she announces they'll start with his meal, leaving Seo Choi completely confused. She reminds him that one needs demonic energy to use any kind of magic. She continues, saying that everyone in the demon world has it, but he has almost none left. Normally, the energy accumulates, but this was his first day in this place. She explains that food from the human world was useless for increasing his energy. Saying he must be hungry, she teases him after that intense battle, but Seo Choi replies that he doesn't think he's hungry right at that moment. Suddenly, he feels a jolt in his chest, his eyes widening in pure shock. His entire body begins to contort, as if in sudden pain. Looking at his own hands, he sees they are trembling uncontrollably. Seolhwa then reminds him that she warned him about the lack of energy in his body, and that he used what little he had left in that single blow during the other fight. She finishes by saying it was a typical burnout from using up all his energy. Saying the solution is simple, she catches him before he collapses to the ground. Holding Seo Choi, she points to the demon and asks if he sees it. She then explains that there's a rule among demons in official, supervised battles. With a smile, she says the winner decides if the loser lives or dies. Then she orders him to devour it, explaining it's the simplest way to get energy. She claims that Big Mouth species is good for recharging his energy. Driven by instinct, Seo Choi begins to walk slowly toward his target. This was the first time he'd felt such an intense impulse as a demon. Watching the scene, Seolhwa realizes the desire was sparked by her whispers. With his red eyes fixed, the only thing on his mind was to feed on the prey. As he approaches the monster, he moves without Seolhwa noticing any major change. But the goblin greed inside him found a much more tempting prey. Noticing the shift, Seolhwa is shocked to realize she is the new target. At that moment, Seo Choi suddenly lunges, leaping at high speed towards Seolhwa. Surprised by the attack, Seolhwa says the whole situation is simply unbelievable. Reacting to the attack, she prepares a spell and conjures chains to defend herself. Seolhwa unleashes a powerful attack, creating a huge explosion of energy on the spot. Surprised by what happened, she just watches the result of her attack, but the chains manage to bind his arms, immobilizing his advance on her. She then says it's disconcerting that a half-demon would have the audacity to try and devour her. Chained, Seo Choi glares back at her, showing he won't give up easily. Warning that she's going to teach him a lesson, she watches as the chains tighten around him. He then starts to strain his arms, causing the chains to begin to crack. Seeing this, she is surprised and says she used the power of one tail. With a great effort, he finally manages to break free from the chains using his strength. Free, he lunges forward and lands a powerful punch on the ground right next to her. Seo Choi then says he understood the message she was trying to send. Grabbing her finger, he asks if she thinks he's just a simple goblin. She agrees that he's right, preparing herself for what comes next. As she falls, she prepares herself and summons the great demon emperor to aid her. She then refers to it as the first attack of her summon. Coming from above, a gigantic fist descends with full force towards Seo Choi. Bracing for impact, he stands his ground, waiting for the massive blow. Fixed on the attack, he doesn't look away for even a single second. Then, the power hits Seo Choi head-on, kicking up a huge cloud of dust and debris. Crossing his arms, he protects himself from the imminent impact of the coming blast, and the trapped monster is also hit by the attack. Immediately after, a second, more powerful explosion of energy erupts. After the smoke clears, she wonders if she accidentally killed him. Seeing the standing silhouette, she says that in the end, he asked for it. Seo Choi remains standing, as she admits she didn't expect much from him anyway. Still, the situation couldn't be considered a mistake on Seolhwa's part. In fact, Seo Choi had awakened an inherent magic that few could learn and use. It was a rare power, one that not even the strongest goblins could easily obtain. Despite its rarity, that overwhelming power begins to materialize in his hand. Squeezing it tightly, he crushes the object that became the symbol of his species. Then the crushed object transforms into a large and powerful combat club. Turning around, she says he's a very powerful half-breed after all. He now wields the inherent magic of goblins, a dark, magical club. Seolhwa was a truly exceptional demon, possessing unmatched talent. A once-in-a-millennium genius, she had quickly acquired her 9 tails. Because of this, she could sense the danger approaching her now. Before her, Seo Choi held the demonic weapon that no one had seen for centuries. Confident, she claimed she couldn't lose to him in terms of demonic energy, but the power he emanated was something she had never felt before. Taking a step forward, Seo Choi prepared to begin his attack. Seeing his movement, her eyes widened from the pressure she was feeling. Then he charged forward rapidly, swinging his sword with all his might. With that, he struck the ground with a sword-shaped blow, causing an explosion. Several pieces of rock flew from the impact that destroyed the entire floor. After recovering, she simply said it was okay, and prepared herself again. Then, a giant fist appeared and grabbed the sword, with her saying she understood. Surprised, Seo Choi reacted to having his weapon completely immobilized by the giant fist. Crossing her arms, Seolhwa warned him that it was now her turn to attack. Then the fist squeezed the club hard, trying to take control of the weapon. He was thrown into the air, swung around by the creature's movement. The giant fist continued the attack, lifting the boy higher and higher. With that, he was violently hurled away, flying without any control. With a victorious smile, she said she had hit him square on with that blow, but he was pulled back, connected to his weapon by a trail of energy, which slammed him completely against the ground. Looking at the fist, she said that probably wouldn't be enough to stop him. She then realized she would have to hit him a few more times until he stopped. Adjusting its grip on the club, the giant hand prepared for a new attack. The fist then spun, creating a powerful shockwave with the weapon's movement. Suddenly, her eyes widened, shocked by something that had just happened. Amidst the smoke, his silhouette slowly dissipated, revealing his presence. He then stood firm on the ground, holding the club with his hand. Shocked, she wondered if his strength compared to the Emperor's. Even so, the giant fist continued squeezing the weapon with all its might. He then twisted his body, swinging the club with a powerful circular motion. Trying to stop him, the giant hand opened up to try and catch the end of the weapon. The shape of the club changed according to the user's will and purpose. It was because of this ability that the goblins thrived greatly in the distant past. With his eyes fixed, he prepared for his next big attacking move. Called Metamorph, the weapon could transform into anything he wished. Now, as a club of destruction, he attacked the giant fist with a strike. Seeing the change, she admitted it would be difficult to respond to the new attack patterns. Besides the power, she was impressed by the efficiency in his use of demonic energy. She knew that a weak attack would only create an opening for him to counterattack. Clenching its fist, the creature prepared to deliver its most powerful blow. With a determined look, Seolhwa said she would have to crush him to stop him. 2 gigantic hands emerged and began attacking Seo Choi from all sides. Trying to defend himself, he held one of the creature's arms firmly, but the attacks kept coming, hitting his body very hard and without stopping. Impressed, she said he was resisting well and that amateurs wouldn't beat him. She then understood why the goblins reigned over the demons in the distant past, but she decided that fight had already gone far enough for him. Observing the situation, she realized he was running out of demonic energy to fight. Seolhwa knew that at this rate, he would destroy his own body from fighting so much. Sighing, she said he wasn't leaving her any other choice. Seeing him advance, she knew she needed to intervene before it was too late, and Seo Choi began to counterattack the giant arm. Preparing her power, she decided to use the strength of 3 tails to stop him. Changing her mind, She used 5 tails and said he should be proud, and Siu Choi continued his attack with a giant sword of energy. With a smile, she said he was the first to make her use so much energy. With that, the great demon emperor appeared wielding his weapon for the great battle. Siu Choi leaped to the side, managing to dodge the attack coming from above. Preparing the attack, the demon emperor spun his weapon with all his might. The blade of the weapon hit the ground, causing a great impact at the spot. With a powerful cut, the creature launched its devastating attack towards him. Hit squarely by the blow, Siu Choi was thrown far away with great violence. After attacking, the emperor remained still, waiting for her next command. The creature's blow left a trail of destruction, dividing the battlefield. Breathless, he realized it was already too late to try anything else. Fallen on the ground, he heard her say that his body was shutting down. Looking at him, she said that was the result of having attacked her. She then commented that she would get a real scolding from Mang Tai for all of that. But as she turned, she noticed something different happening right behind her. Fallen on the ground, Siu Choi began to cry while calling for his mother. Observing the scene, Seolhwa stared at him with a very serious expression on her face. Then she extended her hand towards him, seeming quite annoyed with the situation. With that, Siu Choi's body began to levitate, being slowly lifted from the ground. Floating in front of her, he saw her gesturing with her hands towards him. Approaching, she held his face with both hands, looking at him closely. She then kissed him, transferring something directly from her mouth to his. After pulling away, she turned her face to the side and spat on the ground. With the impact, he passed out and fell onto his back on the ground, completely out cold. She said she used the energy of 5 tails and the fox gem. Looking at him, she warned that if he didn't pay up, she would finish him off. Changing scenes, his eyes blinked and opened slowly in a different place. He then sat up suddenly, realizing that he was now lying in a bed. Confused, he looked around, trying to understand where he was and what had happened. Suddenly, the bedroom door opened, revealing what was outside. Then Seolhwa entered the place, bringing a tray with a cup on top. She then stared at him fixedly, with a very serious expression on her face. Seeing her arrival, he looked up with a slightly awkward smile. Looking at the bowl, Siu Choi seems to hesitate before saying anything to her. With his head down, he apologizes and says he remembers everything. He explains that he was conscious but didn't know how he was doing those things. Bowing, he apologizes for putting her in danger when she only wanted to help. Ignoring his apology, she simply orders him to drink the liquid in the bowl. Surprised by her response, he asks what she meant by that. Pointing to the drink, she insists that he drink it all before it gets cold. Taking the bowl, he thanks her and asks if it's some kind of medicine. After hesitating for a moment, he finally takes a sip of the dark liquid. Wincing, he hears her warning that he'll die if he spits it out. He then asks what it's made of, but she replies that even she doesn't know. Struggling to drink, he listens as she tells him to drink it all and pay close attention. Seolhwa begins to explain, saying he lost something very important during the fight. She reveals that the big mouth he had defeated ran away while they were fighting, but she warns him that he's still its owner, so the monster will hide. Wiping his mouth, he listens as she says he refused a free meal. With a worried expression, he says there must be some other way. With a smile, she reminds him that he's not human anymore. He then says that killing and eating people sounds like something out of a horror movie, but he knows those monsters can hurt people if they aren't stopped in time. With determination, he says he'll eat and kill if that's what it takes to protect others. He then explains that he only asked to see if he had another choice. She then repeats that the most efficient way to get stronger is to eat another demon, but the law of the duel prevents the weak from being eaten by the stronger. Seolhwa warns him that he won't find such an easy meal again. The rumors about him must have already spread throughout the demon realm. Because of this, the easier prey won't want to fight him, and the only ones who will challenge him now will be demons much stronger than he is. She finishes by saying he won't be able to handle them in his current state. Getting up, she says that even so, something is better than nothing. Calling out to him, she says she has a gift for the boy. Leading him outside, they arrive at an outer courtyard of the large building. Seeing the scene, he asks if that was the gift she mentioned earlier. Bound by chains, a monster thrashes about as she asks if it isn't cool. Surprised, he asks if that's a demon, and she replies that it is. Chained up, the monster bares its fangs, while she says it has lost that right. With a smile, she explains that some demons lose their rationality and give in. She then says that the unlucky ones end up doing something they can't take back. They are then branded as animals, and lose all the rights of a demon. From the rooftop, she asks what he's waiting for. The monster stomps on the ground as she says it's just an animal. The kobold then strikes the ground with a powerful blow, aiming for the boy. But Siu Choi manages to dodge just in time, ducking at the last second. Panting, he recovers from the shock, bracing himself for what's next. Sitting down, she remarks that she thought he would hesitate, but he's quite fast. She explains that the opponent was famous, but greed got the better of him. Unable to control his energy, he lost his mind and became that thing. The kobold then lunges forward, trying to attack Seo Choi with its sharp claws. Rolling backward, he manages to dodge the blow and create some distance. His eyes fixed on his opponent, Seo Choi stares it down, analyzing its every move. The monster charges again, trying to bite him with its huge, sharp fangs. From a distance, Seolwa observes, noting that it can't use its club yet. Even though it was stronger, the opponent wasn't the type to let itself be grabbed. Her goal was to push him to the limit to awaken his deepest instincts. In a fighting stance, he prepares to face the monster head-on. Seeing his posture, Seolwa is surprised and doesn't understand what he's planning. Clenching his fist, he prepares to fight using his bare hands. He then rushes in, unleashing a flurry of punches. The scene changes, showing a boxing gym from the outside. In a flashback, his coach praises his reflexes, saying he's much better. Then he asks if Seo Choi has ever thought about pursuing a career in boxing. He replies that he'll think about it once he manages to lose some weight. The coach offers to help, saying he's good enough to compete. Determined, he hoped boxing could finally help him lose weight. Back in the fight, he dodges, since his goal was never to fight. He keeps attacking because his objective wasn't about physical strength or combat. His only desire was to lose weight, and he was desperate to achieve his goal. Even though he never achieved what he aimed for, he never stopped trying. That's why he never gave up, landing a powerful kick right on the monster. Up to that point, he had learned a total of 16 sports to achieve his goal. Among those, 7 were specialized in various fighting styles. Despite training for only a short time, he didn't manage to lose much weight from it, but his goblin ability, combined with his immense effort and dedication, made him a master of the techniques of all 7 martial arts. Delivering the final blow, he lands a direct hit on the creature's face. Unable to believe what she's seeing, she is shocked by the scene before her. Hit by the blow, the kobold finally collapses to the ground, completely defeated by the boy. Panting after the fight, he looks at the monster and asks how he's supposed to eat it. The kobold was defeated. Still panting, Seo Choi looks at the fallen monster before him. Watching from the rooftop, she wonders if what he used was martial arts. She concludes that human techniques weren't adapted for the strength of demons. He got used to his demon body quickly, managing to use it in actual combat. She then says there might be a chance for him, wondering what will come next. Seo Choi says he thinks he won, but asks if eating is literal. With a smile, she says, of course not, making fun of his question. She then warns him that the fight isn't over yet, leaving him very confused. Suddenly, the kobold lunges forward and bites down hard on Seo Choi's shoulder. With his shoulder trapped, he struggles to break free from the attack. Dark blood gushes from the wound, staining the floor and the young man's body. The monster pulls back, Seo Choi's arm trembling from the pain. Eating the piece of flesh, the kobold stares at him with a terrifying smile. Clutching his shoulder, Seo Choi writhes in pain, screaming loudly. Wide-eyed, he is completely paralyzed by the monster's surprise attack. Just then, the kobold lands a solid hit, sending him flying violently. Watching the scene, Seolwa wonders why he didn't react in time. Lying on the ground, he remains paralyzed, feeling the impact of being wounded. That fear wasn't of the pain, but the human fear of loss. As a fundamental fear, his body begins to tremble uncontrollably. Seeing him in a panic, the kobold roars, preparing for its next attack, but he notices the wound on his shoulder is healing on its own. The monster then charges again, attacking with its claws at high speed. Taking a step back, Seo Choi barely manages to dodge the blow. The monster's claws hit him, leaving deep cuts on his chest. Looking at the wounds, he sees the cuts closing and healing quickly. The monster attacks again, not understanding why its attacks aren't working. Realizing his durability, Seo Choi prepares to fight with newfound confidence. The difference affects the mindset and actions of each one during the battle. He now understands that wounds mean nothing unless they are fatal. Accepting this, he unleashes all his power, breaking his own internal limits. Seeing the burst of power, the kobold is surprised by the sudden change. Landing a devastating punch, he says his arm almost fell off, but it worked. Looking at the fallen monster, he realizes the blow was much more effective. Knowing the monster also recovers, he says the fight is over. Seolwa praises him for the blow, saying the kobold won't be getting up. She then asks how he feels using the energy without losing control. Confused, he asks if he really used it, and she explains there are several ways. She says he used the energy to speed up the healing of his shoulder, and that the final blow was a combination of his energy and his skills. He replies that he's not sure, but it felt like a spark. At that, she confirms it's demonic energy, but that he lacks experience. She explains the fight was meant to manifest his energy in some way. With the kobold floating, she says he surprised her. She had expected it to take 10 days. Scratching his head awkwardly, he hears her say he's very talented. Then she approaches the monster, saying it's time for the final touch. Looking him in the eyes, She asks if he has ever taken someone's life before. Visibly nervous about the question, he replies that he's never had to do that before. She then warns him it's better for both of them to end this at once. To do so, she tells him to pierce the vital point just above the navel. Seeing his hesitation, she comments that the first time is always the hardest. Taking a step forward, he prepares to deliver the final blow to the monster. Facing the kobold, he understands he needs to kill it to absorb its energy. Focusing power in his fists, he prepares to do what most would be reluctant to do. Having a quick flashback, he remembers walking down the street with his friend. Another memory shows him next to his mother, still with his old appearance. But the memory changes abruptly, showing Seo finishing off the kobold. She then asks him to look, as he should feel something in his hand. In his hand, the energy crystal she mentioned before appears. With the crystal in hand, he swallows it in one go without hesitation. With a determined look, he waits to feel the crystal's effects on his body. Looking at his hands, he says he ate the crystal, but nothing happened. A small crow lands on his shoulder as he finds the lack of reaction strange. Startled, he yells and asks what it is, trying to shoo the bird away. The creature then flaps its wings and flies away from him. The bird transforms, revealing a girl in front of Seo Choi and Seolwa. Annoyed, Seolwa asks what the newcomer is doing there. The girl replies that she doesn't need a reason, since they're friends. But she says she actually came here on important business with him. She then introduces herself as Solmi and asks if he's the Half-Goblin. Bowing, he introduces himself as Seo Choi, while Seolwa watches him closely. Solmi then explains she's doing a part-time job for Mangtai. She explains she's there to give them the reward for the kobold they caught, but Seolwa tells her to give it all to him, since he defeated the monster alone. At this, Solmi says she saw everything and found the fight quite impressive. She then comments that he could be a tough opponent, but Seolwa is very doubtful. Hearing this, Solmi says she has to completely disagree with her friend's opinion. Turning to Seo Choi, Solmi informs him she'll give him the reward with a few options, and she offers him a choice: go home or become a stronger demon. The scene changes, showing the outside of the school at dawn. As Seo Choi walks to school, a friend calls to check on him. On the phone, Seo Choi says everything is fine, which confuses his friend. He then asks for a favor, even though it sounds ridiculous to his friend. His friend tells him to just spit it out, saying he's the only one he can count on. But his friend is left speechless when he hears Seo Choi's request. He then asks what Seo Choi is talking about and where he is. Seo Choi asks him to tell his mother that he's at a center. Even though he knows they don't just accept anyone, he begs his friend for help. Sighing, his friend agrees, despite not knowing the real reason for the favor. The friend then says he can help if Seo Choi tells him what's going on, but he sees Solmi next to him, silently asking him not to say anything. With a finger to her lips, she gestures for him to be quiet. She says he can't reveal their existence, or she'll be punished. On the phone, his friend agrees and tells Seo Choi to call if anything happens. Seo Choi hangs up, ending the call with his school friend. Looking at his phone, the friend can't believe what he just heard and starts to worry. After hanging up, Seo Choi sighs, while Solmi remains seated, watching him. Surprised, he asks if he can really go home now that the fight is over. Solmi confirms, saying he's right and that she wasn't lying to him. Seolwa then interrupts, saying she can take him back to the human world now. With a serious look, she waits for his answer, pressing him for a decision. He refuses, saying he'll go back in a month after he passes the test. He explains that if he doesn't train, something worse could happen to him in the future. The fight confirmed for him that he needs to prepare for new challenges. Clenching his fist, he says he needs power to deal with these situations. That's why he chooses to train as a demon, because it's the right thing to do. Impressed, Solmi praises his determination, giving him a thumbs up. Annoyed, Seolwa tells her to stop provoking him with choices that don't exist. She then explains that Solmi has a bad habit of testing people like this. Solmi says it was a test to see his personality and how he thinks. She then says she bets Seolwa didn't read the book she gave her. Seolwa retorts that the theory was absurd and that she wrote the book herself. Solmi then says she needs to borrow him for a second to take care of something. Pointing to himself, Seo Choi doesn't understand why she would need him now. With a smile, Solmi transforms, unfurling a pair of large crow wings. Several feathers fall as he freezes, surprised by her sudden transformation. She then fully transforms into a massive magpie demon, a mythical bird. She explains that she can travel to the human world and take one demon with her. Seolwa warns him that he'll feel sick, but that he can handle it. The bird then says goodbye, telling them she'll see them later, and flies away. Handing the phone back, he thanks Solmi for letting him borrow it for the call. Sitting in her chair, she asks if he doesn't want to see his family too. He replies that he only has his mother, and she's away on a business trip. She then offers to make dinner, asking if he'd like to eat something. He then stands up, saying he's always wanted to try something new and different. With a curious look, he asks what this thing she wants is. Cutting to the next scene, some ingredients are shown on a cutting board on the table. After cooking, A wide variety of dishes is displayed on the dining table. Serving himself, he says he did his best with what he had in the house. She praises the food, saying she's always wanted to try a home-cooked human meal. She then reveals she'll be going to the same school as him, surprising the young man. As he eats, he hears her say that she doesn't have any close friends to visit. After eating, she thanks him for the meal, saying it was truly delicious. With a snap of her fingers, she says it's time to deliver his promised reward. Making the object float, Solmi explains that it's a storage scroll. Opening the scroll, Solmi shows him how it works, like a screen. Searching inside the scroll, she gets ready to pull something out. Solmi then pulls out a wooden box explaining how to use the item's storage. Handing him the box, Solmi says there are other ways to use it. Opening the box, he sees several items, including coins, scrolls, and a pouch. With a smile, Solmi explains that the coins are demonic currency. Picking up one of the coins, Siu Choi hears that the 40 coins are worth a lot. And lastly, she shows him the pouch, saying it's a demonic treasure. She explains that the item can do many incredible things, just like in Human Tales. She then reveals that Mangtae gave him the item, showing he has high hopes for him. He then asks if it's because of the festival to choose a new king. She says they would be proud if a demon from Korea became the new king. She reveals that a Korean demon once came close to winning, but lost in the end, and that this demon was also a goblin, the strongest in Korean history. Holding the pouch, he says he didn't even know he was a goblin until yesterday. Looking at the pouch, he remarks that if this is a dream, he wants to wake up soon. With a determined look, he says he'll aim higher now that he's made his decision. With a smile, she says he's afraid of what will happen to the humans. She then suggests that he become the next demon king to protect them. He's shocked to hear he would have to uphold the law for 666 years. With a smile, she says he can ask anything he wants now. Pointing to the side, he then asks about the scroll lying nearby. Looking in that direction, she notices the scroll is flashing with a warning. She then explains that it's an emergency summons for demons. At that moment, she reveals that a demon is breaking the law and harming humans, but she says something like this hasn't happened in the human world for decades. Suddenly, her expression changes completely as she realizes something very strange. Looking out the window, she screams when she sees the call is coming from nearby. In a panic, they both stare at the scroll, unable to believe what they're seeing. It was night, the moon shining brightly over the buildings of the great city. With a snap of his fingers, he summoned a mysterious object into his room. Just then, an ancient scroll appeared before him, leaving him quite surprised. Touching the object, he wondered what would happen if he placed his hand on it. So he decided he would ask her how to use the item later. Turning his head, his gaze fixed on something on the other side. Looking at the clock, he noticed it was already past 9:50. Elsewhere, Solmi calculated that they needed to be back by 10 o'clock. Remembering their conversation, he had told her to wait, that he would be back soon. She had then smiled, asking him to just call her Solmi because they were friends. After she left, the door closed, and he was left alone in the apartment. It was now past 10, and he began to worry, wondering if something had happened to her. Realizing how late it was, he regretted not getting her phone number earlier. Looking at the bookshelf, he stared at an old photograph of his father. Finally, he concluded that if he had goblin blood, it probably came from his father's side. Mangtae explains that the goblin blood in him is from the 4th or 5th generation. Looking at the photo, Siu Choi wondered if his father already knew about their ancestry. Something caught his attention, causing him to quickly get into a fighting stance. Looking toward the balcony, he called out for Solmi but couldn't find her. In a dark alley, a person ran desperately, trying to escape from something. Under attack, a young man was grabbed by the neck by a shadowy figure. With that, the creature revealed its monstrous form in front of the young man. Opening its mouth, the monster let out a powerful scream that echoed through the alley. Firing an attack, a beam of energy shot into the darkness of the alley. Far away, Solmi told herself that this seemed endless. She remarked that at this rate she wouldn't have any of her feathers left. Turning to the hostage, the creature asked why he was still waiting. At that, Solmi confronted it, saying it wasn't even capable of feeling pain, and the two engaged in a direct confrontation. On the ground, the creature made of shadow began to quickly fall apart. Sitting on the ground, the rescued young man trembled as he watched everything unfold. Tending to the injured man, Solmi assured him that his friend would be fine soon. Hearing the news, the young man began to cry with relief and fear, but high on a building, the shadowy creature reappeared, watching them all. Sensing the danger, Solmi turned to face the monster immediately. With a leap, the creature scaled the building's wall with speed. Moments later, it landed hard on the ground, startling Solmi and the young man. Approaching her, he warned that her clan would be ashamed of the situation. Solmi replied that she didn't care, because she knew he would come to help her. Walking toward her, he called her complacent for thinking that way. He then said, "It's better not to have a sister like her." Looking at the hostage, he explained that it was just bad luck. Telling him to sleep until the ambulance arrived, he ended the conversation. Surprised, Solmi commented on the hypnosis, but he said he gave up on learning it. Surveying the area, he warned that there were 2 more demons nearby. He informed her that, counting the last one, he had captured 24 in total. Then, he revealed they were just kobolds, weak creatures controlled by someone else. Worried, Solmi reported that 7 people had died and 50 others were seriously injured. He questioned what the point of it all was, but quickly corrected himself. Then he explained that the goal wasn't fun, but to gain an advantage. Beginning to reveal the truth, he said that demons hunted humans for another reason. He continued, explaining that eating and drinking human blood and flesh is the greatest source of power and nourishment for the demon race. Shocked, Solmi said it was the first time she had ever heard anything like that. Understanding that demons grew stronger this way, she was terrified by the revelation. In a memory, Mangte said that few young demons try hard in tests. He explained that the current generation sees the human world as a boring place. But with the festival approaching, many demons are willing to risk everything. He said that since she was helping Mangte, she should know about the recent cases. Turning his face away, he said he understood the motive, but not the method used. He then commented that he would have acted more discreetly, without drawing attention. She called him a coward, but he argued it would be safer to act personally. Angry, Solmi yelled for him to go and say that directly to those responsible. Suddenly, she seemed to realize something, and her expression changed. Saying she had to go, she vanished from the spot, leaving only her feathers behind. Back at the apartment, a confused Seo Choi leaned on the balcony railing. He found the open door strange, as he didn't remember leaving it that way. Without him noticing, a shadowy figure entered the room behind him. The intruder walked slowly toward him, approaching in complete silence. The creature noted that it was too easy and didn't require so much work. Then the shadowy being prepared its hand to attack Seo Choi from behind. But just before being hit, Seo Choi seemed to sense the presence behind him. At the moment of the attack, he threw himself to the side, dodging the blow. Grabbing the enemy's hand, Seo Choi managed to stop its surprise attack. He then stomped hard on the ground, shattering the entire floor beneath his feet. Surprised, the intruder realized that he had known about its movements all along. Using a technique, he threw the creature with a powerful spinning motion. Panting, he commented with relief that the enemy's attack was a close call. It was revealed that this is a goblin trait, not a special ability. Because of this, he prepared himself, as goblins don't fall for the same trick twice. After the fight, the balcony railing is completely destroyed and twisted. He lets out a breath, feeling a little more relieved after everything. Even with his back turned, he stays on alert, waiting for any other movement. He remembers feeling the same chill when he was bitten in the past. Realizing this, he understands he would have been caught if he hadn't recognized the feeling. Looking down, he hopes no one was hurt by the impact. In the parking lot, a cloud of dust rises from the crash site. A crater has formed in the asphalt, showing the force of his throw. Without warning, he's grabbed from behind before he can do anything. His enemy then says he put all the nearby humans to sleep. As he's being crushed, he's told that panic in the neighborhood would make things more difficult. The being comments that for a goblin, his demon energy is good. With a leap, the invader jumps from the balcony, taking him along. With a spin, he swings his tail and throws Seo Choi into the air. Trapped in the grip, he struggles to break free with all his might. With a smile, the demon uses his tail to hurl Seo Choi downward. Thrown violently, he crashes into the ground, creating a crater. Lying on the ground, he hears the demon say he didn't mean to throw him there. Landing beside him, the demon explains the ground was already weak. He remarks that humans will just think it was some random accident. As he gets up, the demon warns that he should have died sooner. Smiling strangely, he tells Seo Choi to just give up on everything. At that moment, the form of a giant serpent appears, showing its power. Then he offers a chance to die in peace, asking to devour him. Seeing the reaction, he says he's just doing Seo Choi a favor. He explains that he's on another level, and fighting will only bring more pain. Continuing his proposal, he says that if Seo Choi accepts the deal now, he promises not to devour his mother, showing a photo of the two of them. Without a word, Seo Choi lunges forward, his fist ready to strike. He lands a powerful blow right in the demon's face with all his might. He forcefully grabs the demon's collar, with no intention of letting go. Apologizing for the threat, the demon admits it was a very crude move. Then, he says he didn't want to do that. Revealing his magic, the demon explains he needed a provocation to act. Facing the demon, Seo Choi comments that the power of the venom doesn't seem so bad. Then the demon touches his chest, explaining that he needs contact to use the ability. He then admits his power is weak against enemies stronger than him. Beginning to tremble, Seo Choi realizes his body is now completely paralyzed. Then the demon says that in this world, the weak are prey for the strong. Looking at his hand, He says the story would be different if Seo Choi knew how to use the item on his arm. Suddenly, the photo of him and his mother falls to the ground near them. A giant serpent appears, and the demon tells him not to make the same mistake. With great effort, he tries to move, saying he only needs one motion. Seizing the chance, the serpent opens its massive mouth, preparing the final strike. Lowering his head, he seems to concentrate, gathering all his remaining strength. Clenching his fist tightly, he focuses all his remaining energy. Sensing the threat, the giant serpent stares at the accumulating power. Then he unleashes a massive attack that destroys everything in its path. Panting and wounded, he props himself up, trying to catch his breath. His attack tears through the ceiling, opening a huge hole in the underground parking garage. Looking through the hole, the serpent comments that his strike came very close. Without missing a beat, the serpent reacts in time and hits Seo Choi. On impact, Seo Choi's body slams violently against the wall. The demon is impressed that he could do that, even after being poisoned. With its tongue out, the creature watches his every move intently. Suddenly, the hilt of a strange weapon appears embedded in its back. Surprised, the serpent looks at the wound, not understanding what happened. The power of the supreme god of the ninth heaven and his lightning is then revealed. Then, a feather-shaped artifact begins to emerge from within the wound. The creature starts screaming as an energy completely engulfs it. Even injured, he hears someone say that his night has not yet come. Then, a masked man appears, calling them trash for what they've done. With a weapon stuck in him, the demon tells him to stop the theatrics. Smiling, he wonders how he was found so quickly, even though it took a while. The masked man unsheathes his sword, proving he's no ordinary shaman. Gritting his teeth, the demon realizes it will be his end if he wastes any more time. He knows the Pegaboy is a problem, but he won't stand a chance if the other one arrives. Holding his injured hand, he's annoyed by the situation he's gotten himself into. The masked man senses a change, going on high alert. Suddenly, the demon spits a huge amount of blood onto the floor. At that, a monstrous creature emerges, and he says he was saving it for the festival. With a heavy step, the giant monster positions itself in front of the man. He explains that the creature was famous in the West and had a spiritual level. With a smile, he tells the two of them to have fun, as it's a good opponent. Now he excuses himself, saying he's going to finish his meal with Seo Choi. Opening its mouth, the creature prepares to attack the masked man. Leaping at high speed, the man charges toward the giant monster. He dodges over the monster. The demon turns, surprised by the turn of events in the fight. Just then, the masked man appears right behind him, ready to strike. He plunges the sword into the demon. Watching the demon's body fall, Seo Choi observes the scene in complete shock. Approaching him, the man warns that he'd better answer if he wants to live. Seo Choi then asks what he was doing in that strange place. Hearing the question, the masked man seems to recognize the voice and stops. Saying he can't believe it, Seo Choi comments that he had recognized that voice. Raising a hand to his face, he slowly begins to remove the mask. Revealing himself to be Yusin, he asks what Seo was doing there at that moment. Not knowing what to say, Seo Choi simply replies that it's a long story. Walking through the parking lot, Yusin approaches where the demon's body fell. Getting closer, he walks towards Seo, calling his name with concern. Worried, he holds him and asks what happened to his body and the demon. Struggling for breath, Seo asks his friend to just wait a moment. Yusin realizes it's an ability and tells him not to try to speak. Seeing the poison fade from his body, Yusin tells Seo to wait there. Suddenly, the wounds and poison marks completely disappear from his body. He then realizes, very surprised, that Seo was recovering quickly on his own. Turning his head, he notices a strange movement in the back of the parking lot. The defeated demon's shadow begins to drag itself across the ground to escape. As it escapes, the demon leaves a trail of blood behind, vanishing into the darkness. The two friends watch the scene, and Yusin complains that the enemy got away. Once outside, he turns and asks Seo how he's feeling. Exhausted, Seo sarcastically asks how he thinks he's feeling. Laughing, Seo says his friend is a half-goblin who let the demon get away. Yusin laments being a terrible shaman for not noticing anything sooner. Saying he understands everything now, Seo mentions the training center's secret. Confirming this, Yusin explains that Seo would have thought he was crazy if he'd told him the whole truth. Then he warns that this whole situation will be over in just 6 months. Realizing Yusin knows about the festival, Seo asks about the attacks on humans. Yusin replies that this was rare, as demons seldom attacked humans before. Not understanding, Seo asks what he means by this recent change. Seriously, Yusin reveals that demons are hunting humans to become the new king. He adds that a month ago, disappearances increased sharply in populated areas. Therefore, he concludes this is the first time a demon has appeared like this. Suddenly, Yusin grabs him, leaving Seo completely confused by his reaction. Immediately after, an explosion erupts in front of them, interrupting their conversation. Startled by the attack, Yusin shouts Xiu's name with great concern. Arriving on the scene, Solmi apologizes and asks if he's okay. With his sword in hand, Yusin orders her to stop right where she is. Hearing the threat, Solmi backs away, frightened by the order not to come closer. Yusin then warns that one more step and he will exterminate her without hesitation. When Xiu tries to explain, Yusin corrects him, saying she is a demon. He says he noticed she follows the laws, which is why he gave the warning. But he cuts him off, warning that the responsibility is now all his. He then reminds Xiu about the qualification, asking if he understands what it means. Yusin says they are monsters who feed on humans to gain power. Holding his sword, he states that Xiu is human and doesn't need permission. Angered by the situation, he swears he will never let them take him. At this, Solmi understands that to Xiu, this all seems like a completely unfair disaster. She recalls that his name is already on the Demon Realm's official list. Breaking the rules would bring the worst consequences for both friends. She decides she must act before the situation gets worse for everyone. Even so, she doubts she could fight such a powerful shaman alone. Resolute, she apologizes and says that as a guardian, she'll have to take him. Pointing his sword, Yusin says she has decided to completely ignore his warning. Before he could attack, Seo Choi slaps his arm. The blow sends Yusin flying and he falls to the ground in surprise. Without hesitating, he moves forward and reaches for the fallen sword. He manages to grab the weapon before Yusin can get up from the ground. Looking at the blade, he comments that it's a strange sword with engravings. Getting up, Yusin asks what he's doing and why he attacked him. Xiu says he agrees that demons kill others to gain more power and strength. Then he reveals that he ate a demon that very day, shocking his friend. He says he killed someone to protect himself and those he loves. Then he declares he won't stop and will eat demons to become stronger. Desperate, Yusin tries to tell him he doesn't have to do it that way. He insists that with his powers, he can protect Seo and his mother by himself. Interrupting the conversation, Seo drives the sword into the ground between them. Then he says he's going to add one more absurd thing to what he's already said. Smiling, he declares with conviction that he will be the next demon king. Shocked by the declaration, Yusin stands there, not knowing what to say. The revelation also takes Solmi by surprise, leaving her completely speechless. Then Yusin asks if he's gone mad, but Xiu admits he doesn't know the details. Clenching his fist, he says he has a chance to prevent his fears from coming true. Seeing his reaction, Xiu asks his friend not to be so upset. He explains that this is his new reality, and he'd rather act than wait. Therefore, he states with absolute certainty that he will follow through with his plan. Not knowing how to respond, Yusin just grits his teeth thinking about the decision. Saying it's okay, he returns the sword to his friend Seo Choi, but he warns that if Seo crosses the line, he will kill him himself. Agreeing, Seo says that if that happens, he will have deserved to die. After their talk, Yusin bends down and picks up his mask from the ground. Turning around, he asks for her name, and she introduces herself as Solmi. Putting on his mask, he apologizes for interfering in demon affairs. He warns that there are laws that even demons must follow in this situation. Then he swears in the name of the chief shaman that he will kill everyone involved. Saying he'll catch up with him later, he tells Seo not to worry about his mother. After their conversation, he turns and walks away, leaving the area. Trembling with fear, she asks if all shamans are that scary. He replies probably not, saying Yusin must be a very special case. At that, she turns and asks Goyu if he was following her. He confirms that he had to follow her, as she shouldn't have attacked head-on. Then he warns that if it had been a mystic-level demon, she would have been devoured. Bowing, Seo greets him, and Goyu calls him the famous Half-Goblin. He begins to explain about bestial demons, which take the form of animals. Acting on instinct, most of them resemble their ancient ancestors, but he says that high-class demons disguise themselves better as mythical creatures. Furthermore, he reveals that there are beings who transcend their own divine roots. Being very powerful, they were worshipped by humans and demons in the past. With a smile, he formally introduces himself to Seo Choi as Goeyu. Finally, he warns that he is one of the opponents Seo must defeat. Goyu introduces himself, saying it's a pleasure to finally meet Seo. Confused by the situation, Seo extends his hand to greet him back. Then Solmi desperately screams, telling him not to shake the demon's hand. Hearing her warning, Seo turns his face toward his friend. She then yells, asking what he thinks he's doing to Seo. With a smile, Goyu says he doesn't care about any of that. He then grabs Seo's hand, saying he's fun to listen to. Revealing his magic, he warns that he'll use a technique he acquired from him. With his spatial fold, a portal opens and completely envelops them. Trying to stop him, Solmi leaps toward the portal, but it closes. With the change of scenery, they appear on the edge of a lake. Landing in the new location, Seo stumbles, trying to stay on his feet. As Seo recovers, Goeyu comments that he's stronger than he looks. He explains that few demons can handle such a sudden spatial fold and remain on their feet. Without seeming surprised, Seo asks if he's also going to try and eat him. Answering yes, he says he has something to ask before they begin. Asking if he plays any kind of games, he clarifies that he means video games. Seo says he used to play in middle school but stopped in high school. Saying he prefers action RPGs, he mentions he doesn't like online games. Hearing the answer, Goeyu cracks a smile and says that's amazing. A huge explosion erupts exactly where he was standing just seconds before. Managing to dodge in time, he slides across the ground to escape the impact. From the middle of the lake, a huge ice crystal suddenly erupts from the water. Seeing the new threat, he runs toward the forest to take cover. Several other crystals shoot out of the water, flying at high speed toward him. Hitting the ground, the ice projectiles cause an even stronger explosion. From a distance, Goeyu watches everything with a smile, analyzing the outcome of the attack. He comments that Seo is fast, noticing that the demon moved beforehand. Seo realizes he needs to go on the offensive as he can't just keep dodging. Impressed, Goeyu admits that Seo is very good for a mere rookie. Seo's greatest skill at that moment was his incredible ability to learn. Because he had already faced an enemy who lured him in, he had become much more vigilant, his eyes focus, showing he was ready for whatever came next. Then he finds an answer in the lesson he learned earlier that day. Moving forward, he unleashes a blast of energy with all his might. The attack comes from the destroyer's armor, a treasure that releases demonic energy. On impact, a cloud of smoke rises, covering the area. He learned something else from the fight he had earlier in the apartment. Even if the attack works, he shouldn't let his guard down until it's over. From within the smoke, several spheres of energy are launched at him. He realizes he's starting to get the hang of using his energy. A sensation like a lightning strike begins in his stomach. He feels he still has about 60% of his energy left. The last blow consumed 10%, and the smaller ones only 3%. He wonders if running out of energy will leave him exhausted like before. The smoke from the attack dissipates, revealing that Goeyu is fine. He comments that he underestimated Seo, who passed the first phase easily. On the defensive, Seo asks if he's really trying to devour him there. He says he can't sense the same intention he felt before. Admitting he's bad at pretending, Goeyu says he doesn't want to eat him. Goeyu then asks if he knows what a true demon king is. He explains that it's strange to choose a king through a festival of strength. The reason they follow this rule is an indispensable demon tradition. As slaves to their desires, their nature would lead to total chaos. So their ancestors created a safeguard called the Demon King. This would prevent demons from destroying each other until none were left. The Demon King reigns over everyone to ensure their safety. Goeyu reveals that for 10,000 years, the Demon Kings have reigned well, but he warns that this excludes the current Demon King. Goeyu tells him to imagine if their ruler forbade humans from eating meat. Seo replies that the law would be ignored, and Goeyu says that they followed it. Shrugging, he explains the importance of the Demon King and tradition. Looking him in the eyes, he warns that the demon's patience is running out. Seo understands that if the next king makes the same law, they won't accept it. Praising his quick wit, Goeyu says that not everyone will obey the king this time. Even as the strongest, the king couldn't stop a mass rebellion. When that happens, the concept of the Demon King and his authority will fall. Walking, he says he hopes Seo understands what he's talking about. He warns that older demons might try to attack him for his words. Remembering Dayan, he says he understands where Seo got that hope from. In a fighting stance, Seo asks if he wants him to take it all back. With a smile, Goeyu reveals he was thinking of crushing him at first. Then he invites him to join him and help him reign. Seo Choi asks how strong Goeyu is, questioning his confidence in becoming king. Replying, he says he's not the strongest, but he surpasses the other festival representatives. After listening, Seo Choi just nods and takes a step toward him. He then extends his hand to Goeyu as if to seal a deal. Accepting the proposal, he says he just needs a promise to protect his people. Smiling, Goeyu says he knew they'd get along and shakes his hand. Then, Seo warns that he made the right choice, which gives him a clear conscience. Holding on tightly, he begins to unleash his demonic energy against his rival. Noticing the attack, Goeyu says he's the one who's been spouting nonsense the whole time. He continues, saying that Seo attacked him first, disguised as a handshake. Grabbing his clothes, Seo's fighting technique seems much more powerful. For this, he used almost all the demonic energy he had left. This time it wasn't a reflex, but a conscious and intentional move. Using his technique, he spins his body to violently throw Goeyu. Without any hesitation, he moves with great determination and focus on the attack. The impact causes a large explosion in the water, raising a lot of smoke. As a result of the blow, a surge of energy forms throughout the area. Fallen on the ground, Seo Choi tries to catch his breath, clearly exhausted. He then wonders aloud why he's shaking so much. Powerless, he realizes he can't recover because he's used up everything. At that moment, Goeyu appears before him, looking down at him. With a smile, Goyu says he has talent for using everything he had. He continues, saying that the difference in their basic energy is what saved him. Then he asks if Seo Choi has any last words. Replying no, he says he was already prepared for the consequences. Meanwhile, Goyu keeps his gaze fixed on the opponent, challenging him. Raising his fist, Seo Choi warns him that he's too early if he wanted to see him beg. Fixing his gaze on his opponent, he looks for an opening to attack. Mockingly, Goyu says he talks a lot for someone who can barely stand. At that, a drop of sweat runs down Seo Choi's face after the taunt. Saying it's alright, Goyu extends a hand toward his opponent. With a smile, Goyu touches Seo Choi's shoulder and says he passed. He then says he knew he wouldn't disappoint, praising his stamina. Laughing at the situation, Goyu explains he was testing him to see if he was worth supporting. Questioning the support, Seo Choi recalls his words. But Goyu confirms everything. He continues, saying they aren't looking forward to the coming night of demons. In a flashback, a younger Goyu says he never liked the chaos of the realm. Comparing it to the human world, he says the place is quieter and more peaceful. He then praises humans for knowing how to enjoy leisure with various useless things. Goyu states they like it more than eating, and it would be a tragedy to lose them. Even understanding the logic, Seo Choi says that's not a reason to support him. Asked about becoming king, Goyu replies he wouldn't bother trying. He reveals he has the best chance of winning, but explains there's another big problem. Continuing his explanation, he says that the strongest candidates come from ancient clans. He adds that the method of using magic matters, and heritage wins. Comparing it to a human expression, he says it's like being born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Asking about the situation, Seo Choi questions if there's any family pressure. Goyu replies that it's more like suffocation, explaining the pressure the clan puts on him. Under the full moon, he says that representatives have no freedom of choice. He then explains they either overthrow him or put another candidate in his place. Seo Choi comments that it's cruel to have the clan against him, but remembers that he himself is different. With an animated pose, he shouts that Seo Choi is completely different. He continues saying Seo Choi has talent and a motive, without the shackles of a clan. Getting closer, Goyu insists that he not only can, but must do this. As a crow flies by, Seo Choi shouts for him to wait a moment. Gesticulating, he says he needs time to think, as everything was so sudden. With a smile, Goyu says he can understand the boy's confusion. Suddenly, Solmi appears and lands a heavy blow on Goyu's head. With an expression of pure rage, she glares at him after the surprise attack. Striking with full force, her paw hits him square in the face. Completely shocked, Seo Choi watches the scene, unable to react to what just happened. From the blow, Goyu is thrown far away, crossing the night sky. He then crashes violently against a tree. Then, with her wings spread, she glares at the spot where the enemy fell. Shouting for her to wait, Seo Choi runs toward the girl, trying to stop her. Without wasting time, she fires a barrage of feathers toward the target. The attack then causes a large explosion in the distant forest. Seeing a feather on the ground, Seo Choi approaches to see the result. She tells him not to worry, as the attack didn't even scratch him. Realizing he fled, Seo Choi asks who that guy who disappeared was. She then explains that wasn't Goyu, but a split personality of his. Beginning her explanation, she tells the legend of the black tortoise and its origin. But, going back to its roots, it all supposedly started with a very ordinary tortoise. Later, the story tells of a genius who managed to isolate pure yin energy. Breaking his limits, he awakened as a divine creature, becoming the first black tortoise. After that, his children inherited his powers, but they need rigorous training to become complete. She then explains that the snake personality he saw is a side effect, but she describes him as selfish, saying he doesn't care about others. Being made of yin energy, the snake is known to be calm and very cold. Completely submissive, the snake is supposed to act as an advisor and a strategist. However, Goeyu's snake can take control of his body whenever it wants. That's why many demons were against him being chosen as the clan's representative. Getting up, he asks if she's ready, saying they really need to go now. He reassures her, saying there won't be any penalty for them because of the delay. She then points to the destroyed balcony, worried about what her mother will think. Telling her not to worry, he completely surprises her with his calm demeanor. Suddenly, Mangtae appears and says everything will be restored by the next day. Trying to defend Seo Choi, she says she misjudged the situation, but is interrupted. He then says he wants to talk with Seo and her, leaving them both confused. Looking aside, Mangtae mentions there's another guest waiting for all of them. Entering the room, Mangtae comments that this is where human beings live. Already inside, Seolhwa says it's not bad, finding the place cozy. Turning in surprise, he asks if she has permission, to which she says no. She then explains that she didn't want to come, but Mangtae dragged her there. Demanding an explanation, Seolhwa glares at him, and he agrees to tell what happened. He begins to explain that, at sunset, 50 kobolds attacked humans. He says they thought the goal was to lure out Siu and Solmi. Approaching, Solmi asks if that wasn't it, but he reveals that Siu was the target. With her arms crossed, Seolhwa comments that this was probably part of a larger plan. With a serious expression, Mangtae reveals that 200 humans disappeared that night in Seoul. He adds that the real number must be at least 500 missing people. Shocked by the news, Solmi says this means at least 5 demons participated. Turning again, he says the crime scene revealed a very troubling truth. Finishing his explanation, he reveals that demons from outside of Korea came there to hunt humans. Realizing the gravity of the situation, she warns that the hunt won't stop until the grand festival. Then Mangtae explains that the qualification test was supposed to be in a month, but the situation is dire. He proposes that the two of them take the test now, but in a different way. With a serious look, Mangtae reveals their mission, to eliminate the demons that have invaded Korea. The scene changes. A new day dawns over the city as the sun rises. Walking down the street, Yusin regrets leaving Seo Choi like that. Worried about his friend, he thinks it'll be his fault if something happens. Just then, Seo Choi shows up, saying that at least he knew the way to school. Wanting to talk, Seo Choi asks for a minute, explaining that things have changed since yesterday. Now in a coffee shop, Yusin shouts, shocked by the story he just heard. Yusin yells at Seo Choi, asking if he's gone completely insane, and everyone in the place gets scared. Telling him to calm down, Seo Choi asks Yusin to lower his voice, assuring him that he's fine. He argues that it's a good deal since he can stay without worrying his mother. Putting a hand on his face, Yusin asks if anyone told him what his class is. Sipping his drink, Seo Choi then lists 5 strange names he heard. Yusin explains that those aren't names, but the 5 classes of demons. He starts by saying the lowest class is the beast, as in animals. Continuing, he says they're dangerous, but only like wild beasts from this world. He finishes by explaining that humans with the right weapons can face them without much trouble. He warns that above that class, it's impossible for normal humans to handle them. About the demon class, he explains they are as strong as 100 men combined. With a worried expression, Seo Choi asks how strong the remaining classes are. Yusin replies that they mean disaster, suspecting the mystic class is 10 times worse. He adds that they could turn an entire city into a hell overnight. As for the divine and spirit classes, he warns it's better not to even run into them. Asking him to stay away from the hunt, he offers his house as a safe hideout. He says the invaders are at least mystic class. Seo Choi then asks what class he thinks yesterday's snake was. Yusin answers that he was a demon at best, far from being a mystic. He explains that if it had controlled its power, they wouldn't be here talking right now. Besides, he points out that Seo was almost devoured by someone considered so weak. Then he points out that Seo's class is also demon, just a weaker one. Yelling, he tells his friend to get a grip and stay out of things that are none of his business. Crossing his arms, Seo Choi asks him to repeat that, saying he couldn't hear him. With a smile, Seo Choi says he feels like he can win if they fight again. He admits he would have died before, but insists that now he's very different. Explaining further, he says he knows how to fight and use his energy now. Getting up from his chair, he apologizes for making his friend late for school, but Yusin decides to skip class to teach him a lesson, telling him to follow. The scene changes. They arrive at the Olympic Gymnastics Arena, built in 1986. Built for the Olympics, the arena is now a famous concert venue. Arriving in the basement, Seo Choi is surprised by what he finds there. Inside a training center, he asks if all of this belongs to his family. Yusin says no, explaining it was the government, which leaves Seo Choi shocked. He begins to explain that the country's leaders have always had shamans in their service. Correcting himself, he suggests that the shamans might have created the nation itself. Then he says that royalty created an agency to train shamans a long time ago. Tossing his blazer aside, he confirms that the government knows all about demons. Loosening his tie, he says it's a secret that few people take seriously. Already in a fighting stance, Seo Choi tells him to come at him when he's ready. Yusin says there are no rules and promises not to interfere anymore. Seo Choi then asks why he isn't using a weapon like yesterday. He replies that he isn't, and that's the only reason this fight is even possible. Without his shamanic tools, he explains, his powers are usually cut in half, but he guarantees he can defeat a demon-class demon even without a weapon. Walking, he warns that if Seo beats him, he'll be stronger than a demon. Then Yusin asks what he's waiting for, telling him to attack already. With his hand trembling slightly, he prepares for the first move of the fight. Seeing his opponent get ready, Yusin stares him down with a very serious expression. Seo Choi lunges forward, throwing a direct punch at Yusin, but Yusin manages to grab his arm, stopping the attack with ease. He then counterattacks with an open-hand strike straight to Seo's chest. Immediately after, he lands a series of quick punches to his friend's body. Finishing the combo, he lands one last powerful blow right in Seo's face. Planting his foot firmly on the ground, he unleashes a powerful kick, sending Seo Choi flying across the room. The force of the kick creates a huge explosion of energy that engulfs the area. Standing still, he observes the result, realizing any question would be pointless right now. On the destroyed floor, Seo Choi's blood begins to drip slowly. Even with his face bleeding, he tells Yusin that he's really strong. Wiping away the blood, he comments that his friend looked like he was straight out of a comic book. Looking at his own hand, Yusin realizes he took more damage than his opponent. He then notices that his fist would have been crushed if he hadn't used his energy. Realizing his friend could take it, he decides not to hold back anymore. Just then, Yusin understands that his friend was far more dangerous than he had imagined. Charging forward, Seo Choi makes the first move, leaping towards his friend. He tries to land a punch, but Yusin easily dodges the blow. Dodging the attack, Yusin notices that he's faster, but with the same pattern. Suddenly, Seo Choi grabs Yusin's wrist, taking him by surprise. Trying to break free, Yusin quickly spins his body to counterattack his opponent. Seizing the opening, he lands a full-force knee strike right in Seo's face. The impact violently throws Seo's head to the side. Using the momentum from the blow, Seo grabs his arm and throws him overhead. As he does this, he looks up while using his energy-gathering technique. Still in the air, Yusin prepares for the fall using his desired descent technique. With his hands, he manages to break the technique that held him during the throw. Landing on the ground, he causes an explosion that kicks up dust everywhere. Emerging from the smoke, he lands on his feet, recovering from the attack he just endured. In disbelief, he asks his friend if that is what he thinks it is. Holding the energy, Seo says it's the first time he has summoned it on his own. Given recent events, the current situation didn't look good for him. Holding on to his energy, his overall condition was terrible for the coming fight. Physically, he was fine, but the real problem was his demonic energy. He had used almost all of it in the previous fight against Goyu. Recovery in the human world was slow since demon energy is scarce here, but the exhaustion helped him recreate the moment he summoned his weapon. With no control over his body, he remembered that feeling, that exact moment. Approaching, Yusin says what he's seeing is a bit disappointing. He comments that the weapon Seo summoned doesn't seem all that impressive. Preparing to strike, Yusin gets ready to move towards Seo. He then leaps at Seo, carefully watching the attack coming from above. He realizes this weapon seems much weaker than the last one. Just then, Seo's attack hits Yusin, causing a massive energy explosion. With his arms crossed, he manages to defend against the impact. Even though the attack is strong, he says he can block it with his own energy. He decides to maintain his defense, waiting for his opponent to tire out. Just then, the energy he summoned starts to crack the ceiling. Wielding a kind of whip, Seo Choi says the plan is actually working. Confused, Yusin asks what he's doing. With a smile, Seo says he couldn't block his punches forever. Gripping the weapon tightly, he prepares to attack, even with reduced power. The weapon's power and size weren't even half of what they were last time, but he can use the weapon's ability to change its form. He then announces his attack, moving quickly with his weapon. Bracing for the blow, Yusin faces the incoming attack. Seo transforms the weapon into a sphere and hurls it at his opponent, and Yusin completely blocks the attack. His face tense, he pushes back against the attack's power. The impact drags him backward, kicking up a huge wave of energy. After the attack, Seo Choi quickly moves into his next combat action. He then leaps back, creating distance from his opponent's next move. Just then, Seo's attack hits the ground, causing a massive explosion. Surprised, Yusin realizes the attack's power doubled just from that change. Spinning the weapon, Seo gets ready as Yusin yells at him to stop the tricks. Agreeing, he says this is a test to see if he can face demons. Unable to respond, Yusin realizes everything he said is true. With a smirk, Seo Choi says that if he doesn't like it, admitting his mistake is also an option. Provoked, Yusin says it's not his fault for not fighting as expected. Looking up, he asks if this is how Seo Choi wants to continue. Yusin then warns that he's going to stop holding back, but Seo just scoffs. Another attack hits the ground, creating a new explosion that shatters the floor. Swinging the weapon, he launches a series of attacks in different directions. Multiple strikes hit the arena, creating a barrage of explosions everywhere. As the speed increases, he notices it's getting harder and harder to dodge. He then realizes that Seo is adapting to his pace very quickly. With a steady hand, Seo prepares a new type of attack against his opponent. He then wonders if it's just another new trick. With no time to react, Yusin shields himself, but is thrown against the wall. The impact of the attack causes a huge explosion that engulfs the area. Shouting, Seo asks if Yusin is okay, saying he dodged at the last second. Meanwhile, the energy weapon whizzes through the air at high speed. Caught, Yusin recites an incantation, calling for a benevolent spirit from the other world. He then commands the spirit to obey, using the captured energy. Drawing the energy like a bow, he prepares to fire the spirit arrow. Fired with force, the arrow shoots across the arena toward his opponent. Seeing the attack approach, Seo despairs. Just then, the power holding Seo is severed by the arrow. Seeing his weapon dissolve, he moves back to reposition himself. Without wasting time, he creates another energy weapon to continue the attack, his face turned away. Yusin prepares for Seo's next move. Jumping to the side, he dodges the new energy sphere that was thrown. Summoning a spirit, he prepares to fight even without his shamanic tools. Because of this, he can't use most of his spells right now. Landing on the ground, Seo once again grips his energy weapon for combat. With difficulty, he tries to control the power he summoned to his hand. Combining the energies, he finally creates a powerful spirit sword for the fight. Preparing the strike, Seo lunges forward with his makeshift weapon to attack Yusin. The two weapons then collide, creating a massive explosion of energy. On impact, the sword cuts through Seo's weapon, shattering it. But before the final blow, he hesitates because he's fighting his friend. Then he clenches his teeth, deciding he must continue precisely for that reason. Clenching his fist tightly, Seo Choi prepares for a final, desperate move. With wide eyes, Yusin hesitated to cut him down. Without hesitation, Seo Choi lands another full-force punch to his face. After the blow, Yusin falls to the ground, while Seo Choi stares at him confused. He asks why Yusin held back, but he denies it. Lying on the ground, he explains that it was the best spell he could use. He says the blow destroyed his weapon, and would have defeated even a mystical demon. Yusin then reveals that the spell recognized him as a human, not a demon. Still on the ground, he complains to himself, saying that's not fair. The scene changes. Dawn breaks over the city, showing the streets coming to life. Walking down the sidewalk, Yusin appears with a bandage over his nose. Noticing Seo's restlessness, he tells him to just spit out what's bothering him. So Seo Choi asks if his nose hurts and if it will leave a scar. He explains that he heals quickly and that Seo held back on the punch. He adds that his nose would have been broken if his friend hadn't pulled his punch. Sighing, he says that Seo has proven himself and can do as he pleases. But when he thanks him, Seo is told it's just the deal they made. Right after, Yusin tells him to take an item he brought. Holding the item, Seo notices they look like small, colorful, hanging gourd bottles. Yusin then explains it's better to think of them as bombs he can use. He instructs him to just hold it and give a command, or throw it on the ground. Thanking him, he asks if Yusin will be okay, since he gave him 3 of them. Seo then comments that they must not be easy to make with so much energy. At this, Yusin asks how he knows, wondering if he's seen something similar. Holding the gourds, Seo says he can feel the energy inside them. He explains that the energy he felt in the fight is the same as the energy inside the bottles. As a family tool, the tri-colored gourds accumulate shamanic energy inside them. After painting the gourd, a shaman pours their energy into it whenever possible. With the gourds, anyone can summon the energy and use very powerful spells. Surprised, Yusin asks for Seo's hand, realizing he sensed the energy. Confused, Seo holds out his hand as Yusin talks about palm reading. Holding his friend's hand, he says, one thing can be said for sure. Shocked, he realizes that Seo Choi is pure talent, with great spiritual potential. Almost certain, Yusin is startled, but Seo Choi doesn't understand his reaction. Yusin thinks that with so much potential, he would easily be accepted as his disciple. But he remembers Seo is a demon, and buries his face in his hands. He knows the conservatives wouldn't accept it, and things could get much worse. Yusin then admits that if it weren't Seo, he wouldn't look kindly on it either. Handing back the gourds, he warns that Seo has a difficult path ahead. Scoffing a little, Seo asks if he can really read his future. Not knowing when he'll be back, he says he needs a new uniform first. Walking along, he comments that even his feet have shrunk, which is pretty weird. With a smile, Yusin says their classmates are going to freak out over his change. To this, Seo says his friend seems to be having fun with the whole situation. Checking the time on his phone, Yusin says he was just starting to get hungry, so he asks him to get something to eat, but Seo suggests they go to his house. Excited, he asks for the same bacon-fried rice Yusin made before. Yusin then explains he has a guest at home who is still sleeping. Besides, he mentions he needs to be somewhere right after lunch. Understanding the situation, Seo nods and accepts what he heard. Sighing, Yusin tells him not to worry, reminding him of the deal they made. At this, Seo suggests they save lunch for another day. Glancing sideways, Yusin advises him to keep his head up and be confident. Saying their goodbyes, The two friends go their separate ways after the conversation. Arriving in the neighborhood, he looks at his phone and wonders if he's in the right place. He then stops in front of a large metal door with a sign. As he tries to read the sign, he hears the door creak open. Just then, a man appears at the door, staring at the newly arrived Seo Choi. Sensing the energy, he understands that man is a very powerful demon. Without a word, the man walks past him and continues down the street. Then a woman asks if this is his first time at this mysterious place. Introducing herself, she says her name is Hongrion, and she is the vice chief of the house. Bowing, he introduces himself and says he was sent by Judge Mangtae. Confirming she already knew, she invites him to come in and follow her. Following her down the dark hallway, he senses a dark cloud over the place. Walking through the darkness, his foot steps into a pool of shadow on the floor. Turning his head, he is completely surprised by the new scene that appears. Leaving the hallway, he finds himself in a huge, brightly lit palace. Once inside, someone starts pouring tea into 2 cups. Seated, he thanks her for the tea and observes the place carefully. He then asks if they aren't in Seoul, finding the air quite refreshing. She confirms, explaining that the house is a place separate from the human world. Looking outside, he discovers the house helps demons adjust. Surprised, he remembers Mangtae said the trip would help him a lot. Suddenly, 2 scrolls appear in midair, materializing in front of them. At the counter, he asks if he can use the demon coins he received. She explains that most people exchange the coins for human world money. With a smile, she reveals that 1 demon coin is worth 3 million won. She adds that the commission is already included in the exchange value. Doing the math, he is shocked by the amount of money he can have. Getting up, she offers to show him some of the items he can buy. She then asks a man to show the demon pills to Seo. Opening a chest, the man reveals several differently colored pills inside. She explains that the pills speed up a demon's energy recovery. She continues, saying that recovery is already slow in the demon realm. Using herbs and a secret method, they created pills that restore energy. Excited, he asks if there's a difference in effect between the pill colors. She explains that the colors represent the rank, from silver to black. Advising him to take the black one, she says the recovery is much faster. He then asks for the black pill, and she says the effect will come soon. Sitting down, she says that the crystal size and absorption are the most important things. The crystal size grows as a demon eats others or simply ages, but absorption is influenced by talent and is difficult to train and improve. She then thinks that a half-demon would take days to digest the black pill. Holding the pill, he swallows it, while she says she didn't lie about the effect. Swallowing the pill, he has no idea it could fill his crystal 4 times over. In that same instant, a bright light engulfs his entire body. With the release of energy, an explosion occurs in the middle of the luxurious palace. But in the end, the released energy was only about the size of the crystal. Shocked on the floor, she screams that what just happened is impossible. In seconds, he absorbed far more energy than his crystal could handle. Even sweating, he says he already knew, this being his 3rd day as a demon. Because of the pill, he felt an energy beyond his full capacity. A few minutes earlier, in the annex of House Yanghoi, the scene was quite peaceful. Holding a bottle, an associate asks the guest if he enjoyed the drink. Smiling, Dong-woo explains that the wine was prepared especially for his visit. The young master replies that it's not bad, but complains that a man is serving him. He then asks where Hongrion is, questioning if this was some kind of disrespect. Nervously, Dong-woo asks him to be calm, saying she must have been delayed by something. It's then revealed that she is attending to a special guest of Judge Mangtae. Asking who it could be, the young master hears that it is a half-goblin. Scoffing at the idea, he doesn't understand why Mangtae insists on that bloodline. He refuses to call the boy a demon, questioning his presence there. Seeing the others silence, the young master asks if he has grown tired of serving. He then suggests that his words might have offended a half-demon. With a smirk, he says he's heard that House Yanghoi is a bunch of half-breeds. He continues, saying they are accepted neither as humans nor as demons. Clutching his clothes, he calls their efforts a pathetic survival strategy. With a smile, he warns that they will never be called true demons. Staring at Dong-yu, the young master asks if he doesn't agree with his statement. Dong-woo replies that beings like them don't know the course their lives will take. Taking a sip, the young master complains that there's no fun in provoking him with such answers. He then asks when he can leave, and Dong-woo assures him that everything will be ready today. Explaining the preparations, he says that his identity and residence have already been arranged. Dong-yu comments that they hurried to serve him well, for he protects humans. Laughing, the young master says he doesn't do it for them, but for other personal reasons. He reveals that this is his chance to shine and participate in the grand festival. Continuing, he says he's as talented as his brothers, just a little younger. Placing the cup on the table, he mentions he needs recognition as a candidate. When Dong-woo stands up, the young master stops him, saying he has an important role for her. At that, He reveals he wants Hongrian serving under his command in the human world. He clarifies that he wants no distractions, only to focus on hunting the invading demons. Finally, the young master warns them not to make him repeat himself, as they are just merchants. About to give a message, Dong-u tells them to let Hongrian know something. But suddenly, a huge explosion occurs nearby, interrupting their conversation. Completely startled, the two turn toward the unexpected noise. Through the window, they see that the roof of the house next door is shaking. Not understanding at all, the young master asks what the hell that was they just felt. Changing scenes, it is explained that energy flows through everything like water. So life would be like a puddle where this same water comes and goes. This fundamental law would apply to all species, whether demon or human. No one could carry more water than their own capacity. That is an obvious truth. Back to the scene. Seo Choi approaches the woman and apologizes for the explosion. Lying on the ground, she says the pill is incredible, but wonders why. He replies that he feels great, as if he could do anything now. Still dazed, the woman asks what the reason for all the commotion is. Just then, the young master appears and questions his lack of manners for disturbing others. Seeing the situation, she hurries and says she takes full responsibility for the guest. Telling her to shut up, he cuts her off mid-sentence. Then he asks if she thinks he's some kind of fool. He explains that he felt the boy's demonic energy coming from that explosion. He then questions if she expects him to just ignore this whole mess. Bowing on the ground, Hongrian apologizes as Seo Choi turns around. He then says that he is not used to controlling his demon energy. Apologizing for any trouble, he tries to explain the situation better. But with a smirk, he warns that he doesn't like his arrogant attitude. Gritting his teeth, the young master asks what he just said to him. Smiling, Seo Choi says he's sorry for the explosion, but calls him an asshole. Without a second thought, the young master fires an attack at him with his fingers. Hit head-on, Seo Choi is thrown back with great force by the blow. He ends up being thrown against the courtyard structure, causing great destruction. Shocked, Hongrian just watches the scene, unable to move from her spot. The young master warns her not to get involved, saying this is discipline, not a fight. He says he's just teaching him some manners, as Seo Choi prepares to fight back. Pointing his finger once more, the young master prepares a new attack against his opponent. Seo Choi shows no reaction and takes another hit to the face. Running in front, Hongrian begs him to stop, reminding him that violence is forbidden. But as she speaks, she is hit by several invisible blows to her body. With the impact, she falls to the ground and begins to cough violently. Annoyed, the young master says he had already warned her not to meddle in the fight. Looking at her, he says that deep down, she's just like all the others. Wounded, she tries to understand what that attack was that hit her out of nowhere. The young master reveals that this is the magic of his clan, ordering Seo to kneel. Unintimidated, Seo Choi just answers with an insult. Taking off his coat, he accuses him of talking about manners while attacking without warning. Preparing for combat, he says that now it's the young master who needs a lesson. Accepting the challenge, the young master says he will give him what he's looking for. And then Seo Choi begins to block the young master's attacks. Surprised, the young master and Hongrian watch as he manages to stop the attack without any problem. Seo Choi then explains that his magic uses high-speed water droplets. He reveals that the first blow used the spilled tea that was on the ground. After realizing this, he was able to see the water droplets in the second attack. He continued, saying that he can use any water like dew or humidity. He comments that this reminds him of someone he faced the day before. Comparing the two, he says the young master is nothing but a very weak opponent. With a smirk, he tells him not to take it personally. Seeing his opponent frozen, Seo Choi's energy begins to manifest. Furious, the young master calls him a half-breed, gritting his teeth in pure rage. At that, Seo Choi lunges towards him to continue the fight they started. Preparing his attack, he rushes at his opponent with full speed. Analyzing his enemy, he notices that his energy control is quite poor. Dodging the blow, Seo Choi confirms that the attack's direction was too obvious. The young master is completely paralyzed, unable to believe what he just saw happen. Without wasting time, Seo Choi lands a powerful punch right in his stomach. Completely in shock, Hongrian watches the scene, unable to say a single word. Standing over his rival, he repeats that he had already warned him that he was weak. Shocked by the outcome, Hongrian mutters that this should be impossible. Even against an unknown demon, he managed to overcome every single one of his opponent's techniques. Knowing his energy could be read, he masked the direction of his strike, redirecting his power at the very last second. Seizing the opening, Seo landed a decisive blow. With his opponent grounded, Seo Choi stands tall, completely victorious. Reflecting on the events, she notes that the goblin descendant only appeared 4 days ago. She wonders how such a young demon could already be this competent. Seo declares that he doesn't care about the details, but insists an apology is owed. On the ground, the young demon trembles, unable to find the words to respond. Pointing toward the woman, Seo explains that she was only trying to stop the fight. He then orders the young master to get on his knees and beg for forgiveness. With a smirk, Seo Choi stares him down while the other struggles to speak. Before a word is uttered, Seo moves toward him with lightning speed. Raising his fist, Seo deflects a crystal launched his way. Reacting suddenly, the young master lunges forward, attacking Seo Choi with everything he has. But with a quick maneuver, Seo Choi narrowly evades the strike. He capitalizes on the gap, slamming a powerful punch directly into the ground. The sheer force of the impact sends the young master hurtling violently into the air. Crashing through a roof, he lands inside a nearby house. A trail of blood begins to leak, dripping onto the floorboards. Dragging himself up, the young master smiles as he reveals the true power of his technique. Suddenly, Seo Choi begins to bleed from his eyes and nose. By amplifying water pressure, his technique created a razor-sharp weapon. Furthermore, he could infiltrate the enemy's body with water like a deadly poison. His body paralyzed, Seo Choi struggles just to remain standing. The young master explains that demonic healing is incredibly slow against toxins. Kneeling on the floor, Seo Choi spits out blood, confirming the internal damage. The young master admits he was careless, though he concedes Seo fought well. He wonders if Seo's strength comes from his bloodline, or from being more demon than human. From a distance, Hongrion watches the scene, terrified by what is unfolding. Gathering a massive amount of water, the young master declares he will show him what a true demon looks like. But bracing his hand on the ground, Seo Choi begins to rise once more. He responds that he doesn't care about any of that, but he is certain of one thing. Glaring at his enemy, Seo Choi calls the young master nothing but pure trash. Witnessing his recovery, the young master wonders how he could possibly heal so fast. In total disbelief, he grinds his teeth, shocked by Seo's resilience. The young master decides to unleash one of his most powerful techniques. He draws water from nearby sources, concentrating his power for the strike. With the water compressed, its strength defies the laws of physics. Combining weight and speed, the final impact exceeds that of a speeding truck. Leaping back, Seo Choi prepares to face the massive assault. At that moment, a new technique begins to manifest from his own blood. Ignoring the danger, his entire focus shifts to the shape of his weapon. Using what he learned during the fight, he crafts the perfect form for defense. The sphere of water charges toward him with full force. Preparing his blood weapon, he raises it to meet the attack. His technique mimicked a swordsman he had met long ago. However, he didn't need the same precision as the master of that style. Channeling all his strength, he focused solely on raw cutting power. Furthermore, his demon crystal was releasing significantly more energy. With his power overflowing, he delivers a maximum strength strike. Slicing through the sphere, his blood blade splits the attack in two. The impact causes the water to spray violently to the sides. The young master watches the water divide right in front of him. Passing around him, the waves fail to land a direct hit. Confused, he stands frozen in the middle of the chaos. After the impact, the area is flooded and completely devastated. Looking around, the young master wonders where his opponent vanished to. He spins around upon hearing a noise coming from behind. Turning quickly, he sees Seo Choi appearing directly behind him. Recalling what was said, Seo asks about healing limbs with energy. Smirking, Seo says that works out for him as he strikes his opponent. Weapon in hand, he warns that he no longer has any reason to hold back. Facing the situation, the young master stands paralyzed, unable to react. One of his severed hands falls into the water before him. Armless, his body collapses into the pool of water. Standing over him, Seo Choi watches his fallen opponent scream in agony. He asks if it hurts, remarking that demons should be able to handle the pain. Approaching him, Seo Choi stares him down while he lies on the ground. Without hesitation, he lands a heavy kick right in the young master's chest. The blow sends the young master flying into a house. Grounded and armless, he begins to tremble for a different reason. The scene shifts to a statue representing the divine clan he belongs to. As the youngest in the family, he was pampered throughout his childhood. Looming over him, Seo Choi asks if he is finally ready to apologize. With his hand outstretched, the young master seems to reach for something in front of him. He screams that he's sorry, but it's not to Seo that he apologizes. Pointing to himself, Seo says the debt to him has already been paid. He then clarifies that the apology must be directed to the woman. Seo orders him to bow and offer her a sincere plea for forgiveness. With a stern look, he asks if the opponent still hasn't learned his lesson. He warns that he is ready for another round if the other persists. Left with no choice, the young master walks toward the woman to apologize. Watching him approach, she remains stunned by the entire situation. Finally bowing, the young master apologizes for his behavior during the fight. The scene changes as someone shouts outside an apartment building. Inside a room, A voice asks Seo to grab a glass of water. Yawning, Seolwa wonders if he happens to be out of the house. Lying in bed, she questions what he could possibly be doing to keep a visitor waiting. Upon his return, a white-haired man is surprised by the state of the place. Director Moryong comments that this is the first time he's been out in 10 years. His assistant then apologizes, but is told that it's no use. Moryong explains it wasn't their fault, as he had underestimated the boy. Asking about Hongrion, he learns that her injuries are not serious, but the assistant reveals she feels bad for causing the commotion. Then the director remembers she gave him the pill without knowing about its rapid absorption. That's why she realized her mistake, so he asks about their guest. Elsewhere, Seo Choi was resting after all the chaos. A table with food and drinks had been prepared to aid his recovery. Sitting alone, he was still trying to process what had just happened. Unlike the first time, he now had complete control of his body. Even with overflowing energy, his emotions and his will were his own. After using the excess power, his crystal and emotions calmed down. Returning to reality, he wonders in shock what just happened. Inside the room, the door closes, making the environment quieter for him. Lying down, he concludes the fight was justified, as the man was very violent. To stop the magic, he had to cut off his opponent's arms and would do it again, but he also remembers the feeling of pleasure he got from doing it. Just then, a knock on the door interrupts him, and someone asks if they can enter the room. Looking toward the voice, he gets up and says yes, they can come in. Hongrion then enters the room and slowly walks toward the table. Worried, Seo Choi asks if she's okay and how her injuries are. She replies that she's fine, thanking him and saying they were just minor cuts. He insists she shouldn't ignore her injuries, as he saw her spit blood earlier. Bowing, she asks for forgiveness, saying she wasn't in her right mind. He gestures and says it was his fault, since he even blew up a roof. She takes responsibility, explaining she shouldn't have recommended the black pill. Then she reveals that a silver or gold pill would have been enough. Shocked, he asks if she tried to trick him because it was the most expensive pill. She then reveals she is a half-demon, born to a human father and a demon mother. According to her explanation, unions between the two races have been quite common since ancient times. Inheriting traits from both, they are considered neither truly human nor truly demon. She explains that, like them, she can feel energy but cannot store it in her crystal. Because of this, she lives with a thirst that cannot be quenched by the surrounding energy. Even when taking demon pills, the effect on them is almost completely null. Confessing her reason, she says she felt very envious of him because of this. She calls him a miracle, because even with human blood, he is an exceptional demon. Unable to accept that he had what she wanted, she deceived him out of pure envy. Bowing, she apologizes for deceiving a customer, committing a grave sin. Just then, a voice says her way of apologizing is completely wrong. Explaining the situation, Moryong says that asking for punishment is just shifting the responsibility to someone else. Startled by the voice, they both turn toward the man who has just arrived. He then introduces himself as Moryong and apologizes for what happened during the day. Asking her to leave them alone, he says he will take care of the guest now. He accepts her apology, telling her not to worry about it. Then he takes the opportunity to ask for a refund for the black pill. Standing up, Director Moryong bows as a sign of respect to the young man. As she leaves, she thanks him for generously accepting her apology. Seeing the situation, he says he doesn't think she did anything that bad. Turning to the director, he says he would like to request arbitration. At this, Moryong explains that the man from the fight was the clan's youngest son. Eating a cookie, he comments that the young man was nothing like he imagined, but the director warns that the young master will not report the facts objectively. Therefore, he proposes a meeting to explain everything before the situation gets worse. Understanding the proposal, Seo Choi thanks him, but decides to refuse the offer of help. He then states they don't need to get involved to solve this for him. If the clan comes after him, he will tell the whole truth himself. He would tell them that Yuseom reacted violently when a simple apology would have sufficed, and because of that, he only did what was necessary at the time. He says they don't need to apologize, as he prefers to fight alone. Then the director warns that his brothers are much stronger and more dangerous. Acknowledging his lack of experience, he recalls having faced stronger demons before. Revealing his goal, he says he'll have to fight anyway to become the Demon King. Surprised, the director comments that this isn't something one should say lightly. He knows he could die, but says he is fully prepared for the consequences. The director realizes the young man is being very serious about this matter. Eating again, he comments that the idea of demons like that scares him. At this, the director asks if he wants to prevent it, and Seo agrees it sounds ridiculous. With a serious look, the director admits the young man has genuinely piqued his interest. Searching for something in his clothes, he continues to observe the young man before him. He then places an object on the table, making Seo Choi curious about it. Explaining the object, He says it's a gift as an apology. Moryong then reveals that, even though it's early, he wishes to invest in the boy's future. The scene changes. Night is already falling outside the building. Arriving home, he comments that it's been a long day and it's almost time for dinner. A voice then asks why he took so long, and he immediately starts to apologize. Just then, Seolwa appears in the room, finishing the sentence he was about to say. She tells him not to worry about being late, as she just received some information. Curious, he asks what the information is, and tries to greet the bird on her shoulder. Suddenly, the bird flies up and slaps him right in the face with its wing. She asks how he can be so slow, explaining that the bird isn't Solmi. As the bird flies away, she warns him it's better not to say that near her. Seolwa explains that Solmi doesn't like not having white feathers, even though it's typical for her species. With a hand on his face, he listens as she says the bird was a messenger from Solmi. The information shows that last month's disappearances are concentrated in a few areas of the city. He then concludes they are hunting grounds and decides they will raid one of them tonight. Before they leave, she warns him that he needs to prepare for something else first. But when he agrees to get ready, she lands a hard punch on his face. Afterward, she explains she didn't expect a perfect host, since she showed up unannounced, but she complains that the sweatshirt he lent her stinks of sweat. Ignoring his apology, she orders them to go buy clothes for her right now. Arriving in the city, Seolhwa asks if this is the best department store. He says it isn't, but she's impressed by the construction, built without demonic magic. Since it was his first time shopping, Seo Choi seemed quite nervous about the whole thing. He had always been interested in fashion, even saving up money to buy his own clothes. But something always stopped him from going through with a purchase. In the past, he'd tell himself he'd buy something after losing weight. Now determined, he says he's going to make the most of this moment he's dreamed of for so long. Very excited, he tells her she can try on anything she wants, because it's on him. Inside the store, he finally braces himself for his first shopping experience. Because of his lack of experience, he had no idea what to expect. Grabbing a price tag, he's shocked to see the item's extremely high price. Just then, a saleswoman compliments him, saying his girlfriend is very lucky. Seolhwa then starts walking through the store without a single worry about the prices. Watching the scene, the store employee is surprised by his attitude. Coming out of the fitting room, the saleswoman praises how good the new outfit looks on her. Wearing the new clothes, she asks for his opinion on her look. Stuttering a little, he replies that she looks great in the new outfit. When he sees the purchase notification, he's shocked by the massive total. Despite his shock, he sighs and says they're heading to the next store. She questions if they're done, explaining she needs more than just one outfit. Seeing his reaction, she touches his forehead and tells him to come closer. Next, she asks him to hold out both his hands towards her. Then, she takes his hands, while he still has no idea what's going on. Just then, several demon coins suddenly appear in the palms of his hands. She asks if 10 demon coins are enough for their shopping. As he stares at the coins, he hears her say to let her know if it isn't enough, and to keep the change as payment. Turning to go, she calls him to continue shopping in the store. They then continue walking through the store, looking for a few more new outfits. Now, in another outfit, she asks how she looks, and he replies that she's beautiful. Trying on yet another outfit, she asks what he thought of that new combination. Even though he says it looks great, she claims the outfit doesn't suit her. Lying on the floor, he asks why, and she says he annoyed her. Carrying the bags, he mentions that he's surprised by one specific thing. He explains that she knows a lot about fashion, even though it's her first time here. Without hesitation, she reveals that all her knowledge comes from Solmi. Thinking she would like it, Solmi made her read various fashion magazines. At this, he realizes she must have read them all and starts to speak. Accidentally, he bumps into a man passing by in the store. Startled by the situation, he turns and apologizes for bumping into him. Simply telling his girlfriend to watch out, the man walks away without looking back. Seeing that, she comments that it seems all humans are wimps. Then, she explains that the man was the one who bumped into them, and barely apologized. She says he should have made the man pay for his disrespectful attitude. He tries to argue it wasn't necessary, but she insists that it was. She warns him that being a wimpy demon will make him easy prey. Being seen that way, he'll never be perceived as someone truly strong. Then, she states that he let the Heyday clan walk all over him. Explaining how she knows, she says she smelled their scent on him from a mile away. She then deduces that he must have fought the youngest son. Denying she knows him, she reveals that she has fought his older sister before. In a flashback, she recounts that the sister started the fight out of rivalry. He then asks if she fought back, and she replies that the question is whether she won. That day, she crushed her, warning her to never look her in the face again. After that, she never saw her again, but she hears rumors about revenge. Pointing at him, she insists that he needs to crush all his opponents. She explains that using violence the right way prevents more violence in the future. Bowing, he agrees with her advice and calls her ma'am. Then she tells him to get ready to annihilate the ones right there in the store. Down in the lobby, several men in suits were already waiting for them. Running down the hall, the young man warns that they can't be late under any circumstances. Just then, he is violently pulled back by a completely unknown force. Feeling the pull, the girl spins around immediately to see what happened. Looking back, she can no longer find her companion anywhere. Confused by the situation, she asks in surprise what just happened. Searching for him, she tells him to stop playing around and show himself. Nearby, a mysterious figure walks slowly toward its new victim. The demon finishes devouring the young man it just captured. Sitting in a cafe, she complains that he tasted bad, and she should have taken the girl instead. She then takes a sip of her drink, observing the movement around her. Passing by, a little boy suddenly looks in the woman's direction. Seeing the child staring at her, the demon just gives a very frightening smile. Sensing the danger, the boy freezes completely, terrified. Showing her true form, she opens her mouth, revealing her tongue and teeth. In the end, the child is terrified and on the verge of tears. While sipping his coffee, the demon gets annoyed by a child's scream. He then whispers the name Chien, looking to the side with great contempt. Just then, another demon approaches him and says they need to talk. Chien reminds him that he divided the territories and was ready to kill him. Asking if they fought, the other one says the local demons found them. Suggesting they leave, Chien reminds him that the agreement was not to fight them. But the other one corrects him, saying the agreement was not to cause a commotion. He then remarks that they were only discovered after a month of hunting. Concluding that the demons of Korea are weak, he says that retreating is foolish. Since they were already breaking the law, he decided they didn't have to eat only humans. Smiling, he proposes that they eat the two Korean demons who are there. Seo then understands the reason they are there, and she confirms his suspicion. Seolhwa reveals that this store was the place with the most human disappearances. That's why Seo spread his energy to lure them out, knowing it would put them at a disadvantage. Seeing that they didn't run, she says they'll need to teach them a lesson. Facing their enemies, they state that the city is their hunting ground. The reason for the large crowd was the department store's prime location. Besides being a major shopping center, 3 subway lines intersected there. Nearby, there was also a bus terminal connecting to the countryside. Because of these 3 factors, the area had become a bustling hub in Seoul. This made it the perfect place for people to disappear without anyone noticing. Even with no blind spots, it was impossible to prevent someone from vanishing. In a crowd this big, most people wouldn't even notice if someone went missing. Seolhwa then says that, based on the energy, she can sense 4 demons in the area. She deduces they've divided their territory among the store, the terminal, and the subway. Worried, he suggests they inform the judge since they're outnumbered. She replies that it would be a good idea, but they're being provoked. That's because the enemies know they're here and won't back down from a fight. Even though it's a loss for them, Seolhwa states they must capture them no matter what. Unlike the demons, they have to obey the law and can't harm humans. So she concludes the fight will happen here, as a test from the judge. Looking at his phone, Seo Choi says they can't go into the subway because there are too many people. With a smile, she replies that it doesn't matter, since there will still be employees around. Releasing her energy, she assures him a small number of people won't be a problem. Shifting to the rooftop, night had already fallen over the department store's garden. Up there, one of the demons asks her companions where Chien had gone. Ray approaches and explains that she left because she didn't want to take part. In a flashback, Chien said that she wouldn't risk everything for just 2 demons. Ray still insisted that it wouldn't be a problem, but she said that was just his opinion. From her point of view, it was a high-risk gamble that wasn't worth it. Additionally, she thought they hadn't been reliable at all over the past month. Annoyed, Ray asks if she really thinks she can stop getting up. She says she won't stop them and was already leaving. Thanking him for everything, she comments that she learned a lot from him during that time. Turning back, she wishes him good luck with a very mocking smile on her face. Back in the present, the other demons complain that he was too soft on her. Ray then states that nothing changes, as Chien was never really part of the team. The girl says the 3 of them are enough, but she's surprised by the refusal. They then ask what they'll do next, since they can't ignore the consequences. Revealing the plan, Ray says there's a hiding spot for them to continue the hunt here. He confirms they will keep eating humans and eliminate the local demons chasing them. Surrounded by humans, he explains that their enemies can't attack with full force. The girl then warns that their plan can only last for a limited time. Until they return, he says they'll eat as much as they can to reach the spirit level. Calling his sisters, he asks them to remember the humiliation their family went through. He guarantees that if they return home, no one will be able to look down on them anymore. With their new powers, He says they will rule the demons of Jongyuan. Correcting himself, he claims they could be the next demon king of this generation. Down below, Seolhwa smiles confidently, preparing for what's to come. Suddenly, the three siblings sense a presence and go on high alert. Then, a powerful energy covers the entire building, completely surprising the three of them. Using her energy, Seolhwa's voice echoes throughout the building. Ordering them to go home, she controls the humans who are in the store. At her command, all the employees stop what they're doing and leave. Her violet whisper technique suggests commands to her targets using energy. The ability's effect depends on the target's energy and proximity. Noticing that only 3 humans left, Rei asks about the other employee. On the rooftop, Seolhwa comments that she assumes he isn't that foolish. Seeing her arrival, Rei wonders how she got up so fast. Mocking their scent, she says she's thankful they're in an open space. Angered by the comment, Viren grinds her teeth and prepares to attack. Telling her to calm down, Rei warns that she's just trying to provoke her. Then he tells Wylan to go to the floor below, leaving the fight to him. Rei explains there's one more to catch, so he and Viren will handle the fox. With a smile, he allows her to eat the other demon after she kills him. At his command, Viren leaps from the rooftop towards the floor below. Mocking the order, Seolhwa says he should have told her to run far away. Preparing to fight, they reply that she should worry about herself. Rei analyzes his opponent and concludes she's too strong for them. But since they've eaten over 1,000 humans, he believes they can win. Together, they prepare for the confrontation and release their demonic energy. Seolhwa then comments that she likes how they don't know their place. Releasing her own energy, she says she'll see what they're made of. Down below, an old woman appears, staggering and confused by the command she received. She then hides behind a pillar, still a bit lost in the situation. Just then, Seo Choi approaches her and catches her before she falls. Surprised, the woman asks what happened, and he asks if she's okay. He explains that a gas pipe leaked and the store is closing early. Thanking him for his help, she asks if he's seen a small child nearby. Seo then points to the floor below and says her grandson is there. Watching the woman go down, he breathes a sigh of relief for having helped her. Seolhwa explains that hypnosis doesn't work well on humans with resistance to demons. So, she asks Seo Choi to look for any humans who might need an escort. Looking around, he counts 7 people and decides to search a little longer. Walking down the hallway, he senses a faint energy coming from nearby. As he gets closer, a voice calls out to him, and he turns around, surprised. Wylan then suggests they pretend this meeting never happened. She reveals she came to eat him, but he doesn't look very nutritious. With a smile, Wylan says the most important thing is that he's her type. Backing away, he explains he's not interested in being the demon king. The girl says they can forget everything and just get along as friends. Not wanting to eat him, she asks what he thinks of her proposal. He then asks if she came from the floor below, leaving the girl confused. With a smile, she asks if he's talking about the human she sent over. Revealing her bloody hands, she says she ate them both on the way. Couldn't let them go to waste, she adds. Enraged, Seo Choi gets ready to strike. Without hesitation, he lunges forward and delivers a powerful blow to Wylan's face. Seo slugs Wylan right in the face. She hits the wall hard. Looking toward the escalator, his attention seems to be somewhere else. His expression suddenly changes, revealing he doesn't understand what's happening. Then he remembers that demons feed directly on humans. He remembers the last 3 days, which were a tough experience for him. He learned firsthand just how dangerous demons could be. Shaken by the memory, he realizes something he had never thought of before. His fight had always been against demons, without ever considering the risk to humans. Getting up, Wylan complains that the punch really hurt. She wipes her wound, saying he caught her by surprise. She then remarks that he looks delicious now, ready to pounce. Seo Choi calmly replies, just saying that's great for him. With a steady gaze, he prepares to continue the fight without hesitating. He lunges forward, leaping at Wylan to strike. She notices the movement and yells that he's coming from her left, but he feints and hits from the right, catching her completely by surprise. With a smile, he says he prefers to be called delicious rather than handsome. He follows up with a relentless barrage of direct hits. Knocked backward, she touches the ground to steady herself. The force of the attack throws her far across the mall floor. She crashes hard against one of the brick pillars. Standing there, Seo Choi takes a deep breath, observing the destruction he caused. On the other side, Wylan laughs a little as he tries to catch his breath. Sitting on the floor, she says she looks ridiculous after showing off so much. Suddenly, she notices something strange and stops talking for a moment. Looking at Seo Choi, she asks what's appearing. Impressed, she says she's never seen anything like it and asks if it's his magic. Raising his hand, he confirms that it is, showing the weapon that has formed. He attacks with the whip, launching it at his opponent. His weapon shoots across the hall at impressive speed, almost reaching her. The attack hits its mark, causing a massive impact. Surprised, she can only lament what just happened. But Wayland grabs the whip, saying she hoped he wouldn't see this. She pulls on the whip, grabbing Xiuchoi's weapon. He admits she's incredibly strong. The weapon begins to unravel, being slowly pulled from his hand. Taking a step back, he realizes that this is her true form. With a startled look, he sees something coming his way. He raises his arms to defend against Wayland's attack. Wayland lunges forward, rushing at Xiu with incredible speed. Wayland's right arm begins to transform, gaining a new, stronger form. She throws a punch, but Xiu manages to block her arm. Xiu attacks Wayland again, putting his whole body into the strike. After blocking the blow, he plants his feet firmly on the ground. With an explosion, she's thrown hard against the wall. Panting, she says she would have run away if she had known Xiu would see her like that. Then Wayland explains that this is her magic, an appearance she finds hideous. Xiuchoi disagrees with her, but she cuts him off, saying she already knows. She continues, saying she smells like a rotting corpse, something she discovered recently. She then reveals that her species, the Brain Eaters, needs to eat human flesh to absorb power. Because they weren't strong, they were nearly wiped out after a law was created. According to her, forbidding them from eating humans was like forbidding someone from drinking water. Centuries ago, many of her kind starved to death, trying to hide. Telling the truth, she says her parents were killed by other demons. Finally, she says she only feels sad when she sees her siblings' sadness. She reveals that the three of them lived in the shadows of the human world without parents. Living in the sewers, they didn't even have a human form to hide in. With a smile, she asks if he can imagine how things are now. Happily, she says she can be beautiful now and doesn't have to struggle anymore. She also says that eating humans is no big deal since they've always done it. Scared, Xiuchoi says he doesn't want to give up his life because of this. Wayland suggests they pretend nothing happened, as she doesn't want to kill him, but he replies that he is not a demon and wants the law to last. Then he tells her to stop trying to win his sympathy and come fight. Understanding the situation, she prepares to attack again, without further hesitation. Regretting his decision, she rushes towards Xiuchoi at high speed. He tries to block the blow, but her strength completely overwhelms him. Realizing her strength, he understands he can't fight her head-on like this. Despite his rapid growth, Xiuchoi was at a huge disadvantage now. The demon he was facing had a growth rate that far surpassed his own. Trying to defend himself, he is thrown back by the force of her attack. With the impact, the explosion at the mall could be seen from a distance. She apologizes for not being used to her power. Wayland says she'll get the hang of it and finish him off for good. For demons, human flesh acts as an elixir to increase their power. Wayland has been eating humans for the past month, resulting in an absurd power growth. Catching his breath, Xiuchoi tells her to use her demon magic again. She replies that his last attack was his strongest and his best chance. Agreeing with a maybe, he concentrates his energy in his hand, ready to attack. Firing his energy, he launches several projectiles in her direction. Dodging the attacks, she realizes he can't use that magic freely. He then charges forward and lands a direct punch on her with his transformed fist. Countering with several blows, she says she'll play a little before eating him. Lying on the ground, he's completely battered from her barrage of attacks. She regrets not even knowing her opponent's name. Moving in for the final blow, she says it was nice to meet him. Lying on the ground, he understands that she bet her life on that last attack. He then reveals his technique, confirming that his gamble finally paid off. Going back a few hours, Seolhwa asks Xiuchoi if he fought Goyu. He replies that it wasn't much of a fight, since his attacks didn't work on him. She remarks that Goyu simply ignored the blows, being on a completely different level. Explaining further, she says he's one of the strongest fighters. Seolhwa continues, saying that few 500-year-old demons are stronger than him. Worried about this, Xiuchoi asks if that rule also applies to her. Annoyed by the question, she glares at him, and he quickly apologizes for the offense. With a smile, she claims she'll win anyway, because she is the strongest. He then asks what moves she used, hoping she didn't lose control. Telling Mangtae, he says he used a wrestling move with an item. Seeing that Goyu was unharmed, Xiuchoi says he felt a limit to his power. Questioning the situation, he remembers that Goyu stood still during his attack. Seolhwa realizes there's more to the story than just the level difference between them. With a smile, she explains that wrestling is about strength, not magic. Suddenly, a loud trembling sound is heard from outside the car. Feeling the ground shake, she just waits, pondering the noise she heard. With a smile, she says he's getting the hang of it and is less of a concern. Just then, the demon Ray appears, wounded, asking what she's doing there. Explaining her presence, she says she was right, but she worried about him. She then says he was a good obstacle, but she's a little disappointed. Sighing, she regrets thinking she would need to use at least 4 of her tails. Looking at the defeated Wailan, she understands why the demons came to Korea. Then she asks how many of them crossed over and who helped them hide. Refusing to talk, Ray warns that he won't tell her anything. With a smile, she says that dignity doesn't suit him and makes him look ridiculous. Offering a deal, She says she'll let him live if he decides to talk now. As his body transforms, he refuses to accept any kind of deal. Watching the transformation, she remains calm, analyzing the unfolding situation. Sensing his power level, she pulls out a red thread, preparing to fight. Already transformed, he rushes forward with impressive speed in her direction. Preparing her attack, she invokes the first bridge of the great demon emperor. With overwhelming power, she defeats him with a single precise strike. Feeling another tremor, she warns that the result would have been the same either way. Looking at him on the ground, she criticizes the waste of his strength and power. With a crow on her shoulder, she explains that class comes from how power is used. Just then, the crow on her shoulder comments that it really likes her outfit. Surprised, Seolhwa asks when she arrived, watching the creature fly away. Back in her normal form, Solmi says her reaction is very dry. Worried, Seolhwa asks what happened, as she doesn't look well at all. Solmi laughs, exhausted, saying she searched through both worlds without any sleep. Starting to cry, she directly asks Seolhwa for help. Grabbing her clothes, she lists all the tasks she has to do alone. Seolhwa agrees to help, but asks what this talk about guests is. About to answer, Solmi stops as she feels the ground shake again. Looking at her friend, Seolhwa replies that the tremor is probably Seo Choi. Lifting her head, Solmi hears Seolhwa say that he's in the middle of a fight. Worried, she questions Seolhwa, who confirms the great danger he's in. Seolhwa then argues that he can't be protected just because the situation is dangerous. As a goblin who wants to be king, he has no choice but to fight. Concerns like hers, according to Seolhwa, will only get in the way of his chosen path. Seolhwa says she doesn't need to worry about Seo Choi. Seolhwa just tells Solmi to calm down and wait a bit. Returning to the confrontation, it's said that the fight will be over very soon. Weilan yells, asking why the attack didn't work on him. Just then, she lands another direct hit on him. He falls to the ground, defeated, using his hand to steady himself before getting up. Confused, she wonders how her attacks aren't working after so many hits. Grabbing her arm, he reveals that something changed at that very moment. She watches him from a distance, not understanding how he's still able to stand. Catching his breath, he announces the name of his technique, Goblin Wrestling. Unlike the club, every goblin is born with the ability to use wrestling, but if it were just a strength-based technique, it wouldn't be called demonic magic. That's why goblins don't lose in a fight. It's not that they're just good at it. Taking a step, Seo Choi apologizes for getting carried away with everything. He explains that he needed to get used to the new sensation so he wouldn't forget it. With a determined look, he warns that it's time to end this. Seeing her advance, he knows he needs to lessen the shock of the incoming blow. Then she grabs his head, ready to put him to eternal rest. With a serious look, she says, "This is for what happened before." Blocking her movements, he lands a direct blow to her head. After the impact, she observes the result, but notices something. Seo says that deflecting the enemy's power is a basic principle of many known martial arts, but instead of stopping there, he released the damage across the surface. This technique is what goblins call roots, like a tree. Standing on 2 feet was the foundation for it all. By minimizing the damage taken, the technique makes him much more resilient. It also amplifies the power of his goblin wrestling, increasing his strength. At that moment, the item he's using seems to react with his energy. Becoming stronger than before, he prepares for his next move. Unleashing the ability's true power, he now executes his special technique. He then grabs Weilan from the air and throws her over his shoulders. Slamming her onto the ground, he finishes the move with force. She can barely react to the blow, completely overwhelmed by his technique. With the impact of the blow, the entire building begins to shake again. Sitting on the edge of the crater, he observes the result of his attack. Beneath them, the floor of the next level down shatters from the force. Landing on the floor below, he sits amidst the rubble. Badly wounded on the floor, Weilan asks him for a favor. She asks him to kill her, as she wants to die looking good, but he tells her he won't kill her, as he needs a lot of information. Laughing a little, Weilan says she hopes to be kept alive for a good reason. Suddenly, he turns, sensing a new presence rapidly approaching him. Struck by surprise, he manages to block an attack coming from his side. Changing scenes, Solmi explains that demons from China have come to take responsibility. Seolhwa shows curiosity, saying she'd like to meet the newcomers if they're strong. But Solmi warns that the help sent is someone famous and stubborn, difficult to deal with. With a smile, Seolhwa asks if it's some 1,000-year-old grandmother, but Solmi says no. As Seolhwa asks who she is descended from, a new figure appears before Seo Choi. Then a woman appears, introduced as the granddaughter of the great monkey king Sun Wukong. Standing there, the new demon surveys the scene with an imposing posture. Realizing he wasn't the target, he introduces himself as Seo Choi. She cuts him off, saying she doesn't care who he is. Noticing her accent, he hears her say that the sinner behind him deserves to die. Touching her earring, she warns that she'll let it slide, just this once. Then, she breaks the tip of the accessory, which begins to glow brightly. She then tells him to get out of the way if he doesn't want to die with her. Blowing what looks like a thread, she launches her attack in his direction. With no time to react, he sees the projectile coming at high speed. On impact, a massive explosion erupts, destroying part of the surrounding scenery. Looking at the result, she comments that she thought that would be enough for him, but he uses Wylon as a shield, making her remark that he's strong. He then realizes he would have died if he were the same as before. Using his technique, he successfully deflected the attack's damage. Even so, the damage was too much for his still developing body. Panting, he wonders if he can dodge again, questioning if his legs will hold up. She warns him it doesn't matter, as she'll make sure he dies this time. Focusing her energy, she prepares to use her demon magic. Then she unleashes her attack, the Wind of Spirits, with immense power. After the explosion, the area is completely covered in dust from the attack. Surprised, she realizes something unexpected just happened to her strike. Just then, a giant fist appears and stops her attack in midair. Grabbing the energy, the fist crushes the attack, dissipating all its power. Lying on the ground, Seo Choi looks up, still trying to understand the situation. A giant creature then emerges, standing right in front of him. Arriving on the scene, Seolhwa says she felt something strange and decided to check it out. With an irritated look, she calls out to the demon who came from China. She accuses her of fighting a weak demon instead of doing her job. Telling her not to just stand there, she demands the other at least make an excuse. Then she finishes the sentence, telling the other to speak up if she wants to keep living. Approaching, Seolhwa asks Seo Choi if he's feeling alright. Getting up, he replies that his injuries aren't serious, and she asks what happened. Ignoring the fight, Seolhwa says the real reason for the commotion is something else. Seeing his confusion, she explains that the other one was treated like a princess. That's why the newcomer doesn't want to follow orders and wants to show who's boss. Far from them, the demon complains that she didn't want to come and that everything is worse here. She then questions how she can work with demons who don't know their place. Mocking the situation, Seolhwa challenges her to show everyone how it's done. Feeling the tension in the air, Seo Choi just gulps, expecting the worst. As the tension rises, the two prepare for the confrontation about to begin. Exchanging defiant glances, the two face off, ready for the first move. Then, they begin to manipulate their powers, preparing their direct attack techniques. Realizing the danger, Seo Choi yells desperately, telling them to stop. But Solmi appears, asking Seolhwa what she thinks she's doing. Annoyed, she reminds her that the other is a guest, and that they shouldn't be fighting. Surprised by the scolding, Seolhwa doesn't know what to say to her friend. Solmi warns that the same goes for the other one, who was sent as backup. Turning to Xiaohui, she points out that she was the one who attacked first. Fighting between demons without a judge is a crime, a law made by the king himself. With a serious look, Solmi warns that she won't hesitate to judge her right here and now. Seolhwa then explains to Seo Choi that she would deport and report her. She continues saying that not everyone can be in Solmi's position. Even though many desire the honor, few demons like her can handle the job. Her job is to deliver bad news to other demons while keeping her head held high. Seolhwa also says that despite being kind, she never backs down from a fight. Sighing, Xiaohui admits she lost control and that the situation isn't worth it. Seolhwa agrees, saying it's not worth teaching the boy a lesson. Turning to leave, Xiaohui warns them to never get in her way again. Angered by the insult, Seolhwa prepares to retaliate, but is stopped by Solmi. With a frightening glare, Solmi makes Seolhwa back down immediately, without question. Looking at the wreckage, Solmi celebrates that the mission was a total success. Congratulating Seo Choi, she says that thanks to him, the humans will be safe here. Worried about other locations, he learns they aren't the only ones hunting today. Demons like Goyu and others were also sent to different hunting grounds. With a smile, she believes that most of the invaders were caught tonight. Seolhwa then reveals that some humans with free time are also helping with the mission. According to the agreement, the demons would take the area south of the Han River. Meanwhile, on the north side, the shamans would be responsible for taking care of things there. Cutting to a new scene in Namsan, the night seems quite peaceful in the city. Sitting on the ground, Yusin rests, looking exhausted after a battle. A woman scolds him, saying this is what he gets for fighting alone. Introducing herself as Soyeonji, she says he could have brought more help. Yusin replies that he was fine on his own, as the others would have just gotten in his way. She then retorts that it's a shaman leader's duty to get used to leading. Holding his mask, he states that he never asked to be their leader. Standing over the defeated demon, Yusin complains that he was forced to take the position. Pondering, she says the demon behind him is indeed very large and strong. Turning around, he confirms it's a mystic-level demon, but maybe not the leader. Yusin then explains that it was just a medium-sized demon from the group. Surprised, she realizes he defeated a group of 10 mystic demons all by himself. Reflecting on his growth, she understands the Elder's decision to promote him. Searching through the demons' remains, Yusin asks about the report they need to submit. She replies that they need to go now, as the police commissioner general is waiting for them. Denying his request for a break, she warns him that the city of Seoul is in crisis. Showing him a news report, she says that civilians might think it was a terrorist attack. Agreeing that it's better this way, she says they need to keep up appearances for now. Sighing, he agrees to go home, but she tells him about the airport tomorrow. Shocked by the news, he questions why he has to go to the airport so early. She explains that an Onmyoji family from Japan requested that they send 2 people over. Asking why he was chosen, he's told it's to balance the overall power level. At the airport, it's revealed that the 2 visitors are the future leaders of the clan. Pulling his suitcase, he comments to his sister that the air here feels different. She then tells him to cheer up a bit, since it's their first trip. He replies that he knows it will be tough, but he hopes Korea will be fun. Trying to offer a welcome in Japanese, he fumbles over the words he just read. Soyeon criticizes him for being late, but he tells her to shut up. Wondering why they accepted the job, he finds it unprecedented for shamans and onmyojis to work together. She responds that technically it isn't, recalling an event from the Japanese colonial era. Back then, 2 onmyojis came to Korea and performed an exorcism together. When he asks what happened, she explains they caught the demon, but not without trouble. The process wasn't peaceful because the 2 of them didn't get along at all. Their bickering caused more damage than the actual fight against the demons. Reflecting on the past, she says this was expected due to their differences. She then warns him to be careful, as even a small spark could ignite a conflict. Worried, he says he's not good at dealing with that and will run away if things go south. Looking ahead, Soyeon warns that the guests are right there, waiting. Standing near a pillar, the 2 young people wait, knowing what they look like. He then looks in their direction, noticing they are being watched from afar. Seeing the young man's appearance, he comments that he looks like trouble personified. Taking a step forward, he prepares to greet the 2 guests. He approaches, coming face to face with the newcomer from the airport. Trying to stay calm, he starts speaking Japanese to give him a warm welcome, but the young man greets him first, shaking his hand and suddenly bowing. Confused, he hears the boy thank them in Korean for picking them up. Introducing himself, the youth says his name is Yoshihiro Kira and hopes they get along. Praising his Korean, Soyeon hears that he has been studying the language since middle school. Giving a handshake, he mentions that his sister is even better than he is. She only looks from the corner of her eye, scrolling through her phone without caring about the conversation. With a simple hi, she keeps typing on the device, not moving an inch. Seeing her reaction, the man is left not knowing what to do or say. Apologizing, he reveals her name is Yuzuru Kira, and she's 2 years older. He then realizes that one truly shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Looking at the girl, he understands that she is actually the real troublemaker. The scene changes as they get into the car, with a hotel reservation already made. While driving, Soyeon tells them to let her know if anything feels uncomfortable during their stay. With a smile, Kira thanks her, happy they secured lodging so quickly. Seeing her master so quiet, Soyeon calls out to him, receiving a look back in response. Nodding his head, he apologizes and asks exactly why they are here. Yuzuru then asks if they are there to help or just for sightseeing. Soyeon says that knowing the reason will help them provide the best service possible. The young man falls silent for a moment, thinking about what he should say next. Suddenly, Kira decides to tell the truth, surprising his sister with the move. She questions him, but he says there's no reason to hide the facts. Arguing his point, he says it's better to be honest and ask for their cooperation. When asked which demon they are hunting, he hears that it isn't the spirit type yet. Kira explains that in Asia, demons are divided into 4 main groups. The first group consists of beast demons, animals that gained intelligence and energy. The second group is made of vengeful ghosts, human souls that turned into demons. The last group is the Tsukumogami, ancient items inhabited by a soul. He continues, saying that demons born from nature are called spirits, but he reveals there is an exception, something they call Tatarigami. His master recognizes the name, noting that in Korea, they call it the shadow demon. Confirming this, Soyeon says it is born from a deep abyss. No one knows exactly how it is born, but people speculate it comes from collective fear. Only one of each species of shadow demon can exist in a single generation. Soyeon explains that their growth and desires transcend everyone's imagination. Born with great intelligence, they grow stronger as they feed on everything. In the past, their appearance always caused chaos, forcing an unlikely union between everyone. Asked about the demon's type, Kira replies that he doesn't know yet. Yusin only knows that a seer predicted its birth and its journey to the west. Leaving the two at the hotel, Yusin tells them to get some rest. Entering the lobby, Kira asks his sister what she's thinking. Outside, Yusin says they'll cooperate and calls the situation a disaster. Agreeing with him, Soyeon hears him say he understands exactly what she means. Thoughtful, Soyeon wonders what the person behind all this is after. Reflecting on yesterday, Yusin says the demons were weak and easy to eliminate. Wondering if they want something else, he thinks this would be a waste of time. If the plan was to make them lower their guard, Yusin says they succeeded. Soyeon says she thought the subjugation was over, but if one of them is a shadow demon, he then suggests that the shadow demons might be behind everything. Turning in surprise, she hears that it's not just Japanese demons who are here. Even in small numbers, demons from other parts of the world are in Korea. He continues, saying a shadow demon is rare but not impossible to find. If a foreign shadow demon had been growing over the last month, it would be a problem. It would be on a completely different level, perhaps even spirit level. Besides the onmyojis, he believes someone else is here to kill the demon. Watching the city, she hopes she's worrying over nothing. The scene shifts to the mountains near Seoul. Turning around, Seo says the place looks good since there aren't many people. Walking, Seolwa says it doesn't matter if a few humans see them there. Laughing, Seo says that's a relief, as he can control anyone if he needs to. Seolwa falls silent for a moment, watching Seo with a serious expression. She then asks if he hasn't slept because of the humans who died yesterday. He replies that it's not his fault, but hers for not reaching them. Looking at the ground, he admits he thought he could have done more. Seolwa says she brought him here specifically so he can do more. From now on, she will teach him magic whenever she can so he grows strong. Learning simple demon magic can be very useful in various dangerous situations. Nodding, he promises to pay close attention to the training. Before starting, she moves quickly, dragging her feet across the ground. With a swift motion, she closes in on him, catching him off guard with her speed. Thrown off balance, he tries to ask her to wait, but it's already too late. Grabbing his clothes, she stops him from falling, telling him to be careful. She reminds him that as a goblin, he must never be caught by surprise. Holding him in her arms, she says this is the perfect position for them. Leaning in, she asks him to relax and stay still for a moment. Then she leans closer, whispering that the training will be over very soon. Smelling a flower, Seo catches a sweet, peachy scent coming from Seolwa. Suddenly, he feels dizzy, not understanding what's happening. With a fixed gaze, she watches him, remaining silent for a moment. Seo then closes his eyes, feeling a strange sensation wash over his body. Opening them again, he realizes that his surroundings have completely changed. Looking around, he finds himself in a familiar place, yet different from usual. Surprised, he hears that he doesn't need to worry, as this isn't the real place. She then explains that this place is an area within his own subconscious. Turning around, relieved, he asks if she's also an illusion like everything else. She denies it, revealing that the magic she used on him is a bit special. The magic of her kind, the Violet Whisper, tricks the brain with false stimuli. With this ability, she can control movements and even make people forget. By connecting their brains, she can open a mental pathway between them. In short, she says she's just visiting his mind as a guest. With her hand glowing, she prepares to begin the next step of the training. Surprised, he hears that she's interested in the test he's about to take. Using her power, she creates an opponent for him, wanting to see how he fights. Taking a step, the shadowy figure begins to slowly materialize in front of him. As the form takes shape, the opponent's body begins to appear clearly. Terrified, Seo begs her not to say it's who he thinks it is. A muscular version of himself emerges, walking slowly toward him. She then explains that it's not an exact replica of how he used to be. With a smile, she says it's a perfect copy based on his memories. Asking if he isn't curious, she challenges him to find out who is stronger. Snapping her fingers, she says the opponent's energy is the same as it was back then. She remembers he was on the verge of collapse, barely able to stand. With a firm step, the copy takes its stance, ready for the coming fight. Then the copy lunges forward with a leap, creating an explosion as it takes off. Closing in on him, the copy prepares to deliver the first blow of the fight. With a powerful punch, the copy strikes the ground, narrowly missing its target. Watching the fight, she remarks that he was strong even without demon energy. Startled, he wonders what kind of power that is, feeling the shockwave from the blow. With a kick, the copy hits Seo, forcing him back a few steps. Surprised, Seo can barely react to his opponent's speed and strength. The copy attacks him with a flurry of punches, slamming him to the ground. As he's hit, Seo wonders if he was really that strong back then. He realizes the copy's power and speed exceed that of the demoness. Blocking the punch, Seo prepares to counter with a strike of his own. Dodging to the side, Seo tries to hit the copy's face, but is blocked. The copy lands a knee directly to Seo's face, sending him flying from the impact. Seated, she asks if it isn't easy, touching the cup in front of her. She then comments that if she fought him physically, it wouldn't have been an easy fight. Pausing for a moment, Siu takes a deep breath, preparing for the next attack. Sipping her tea, she reflects that his battle sense only works against the weak. She wonders what Siu will do if his enemy is even more talented. Lying on the ground, Siu wonders why he can't deal any damage. Even giving it his all, the copy doesn't even budge an inch. Wondering how this is possible, Siu can't understand his opponent's strength. Intrigued by this discovery, Seolhwa watches him, raising one of her eyebrows. Getting up, he assumes a fighting stance, ready to continue the combat. The copy rushes forward, moving with impressive speed in his direction. He realizes that all the techniques he used were influenced by his opponent. When he used the club, the memories within it helped him change its form. With a determined look, he believes that if the copy can do it, so can he. He then punches the ground, using his opponent's same technique to defend himself. The copy recognizes the move, calling the technique by the name ground stomp. He admits the copy is much better at the technique than he is. Grabbing his own wrist, he says, "The demon energy doesn't matter now." He knows he can't be as good as the copy, but decides to try anyway. Launching the copy upwards, he reveals he knows a few fighting tricks himself. With his club ready, he prepares for the next attack with full confidence. Seo challenges it, wanting to know how it will use the technique without the ground. He gets ready to strike, prepared to show what he can do in the air. Throwing the club to the sky, it opens up into a much larger form. With a smile, he watches his weapon float, ready for the final blow. The club comes down with full force, causing a huge explosion as it hits the ground. With a victorious smile, she closes her book, awaiting the result of the strike. Holding the club, he shouts that he did it, understanding his opponent's weakness, and then she congratulates him on the great job he did. Seolhwa then says that they both acknowledge the strength he showed in the fight. Laughing, she points to the side, telling him to look closely. Startled, he turns, sensing a new presence slowly approaching him. He then sees a familiar figure, holding the club with a serious expression. Raising the weapon, the copy readies itself for the next round of the fight. She reveals that he has been acknowledged, as the copy has taken his club to fight. Breaking into a cold sweat, he realizes the copy didn't think he was worthy of using the weapon. With the club growing, the copy prepares for the final attack with all its power. Shocked, he just stares at the weapon, feeling the immense energy it's now emanating. Falling to his knees, he realizes there's no way to dodge or defend himself. With his forehead bleeding, he complains that this whole situation isn't fair. The copy strikes with the club, causing a gigantic explosion as it hits the ground. After the impact, the ground of his mind shatters into pieces. Wounded and defeated, he is thrown back into the real world, unconscious. Lying on the ground, he wakes up, still feeling the effects of the fight on his body. Helping him up, she congratulates him on the good fight he had. She then comments that the fight wasn't fair, but he made her use 5 tails. Curious, he asks how many tails she would use to fight him now. Thoughtfully, she replies she'd use 3, or maybe 4 if she were in a hurry. She reveals that her power increases 1.5 times with each tail she uses. With a serious look, she shouts, saying she sees someone hiding like a rat. Coming out from behind the trees, Hongrion apologizes for hiding there. Kneeling, she says she had no ill intentions, surprising Seo as he recognizes her. Seolhwa asks if he knows her, and he confirms she is from the Yanghoi house. Hongrion then explains that she is there to deliver an item as a deposit for the contract. She reveals the item is a piece of clothing made from a superior demonic treasure. Starting a day earlier, Moryong says the word investment can be confusing. Once inside the room, he promises to help Seo Choi with material resources. Showing some special items, he claims no one else has seen them until now. Seo Choi listens to the proposal and says it all sounds great to him, but he quickly questions the real meaning of the word investment in this situation. Asking what Moryong wants, he's told he's a very smart kid. At that, the director prepares to say what they really want from the young man. With a laugh, Moryong reveals that for now, they want absolutely nothing from him. He then explains that's why it can't be called an investment right now. Being blunt, Moryong warns that Seo Choi isn't the only candidate. He then explains that a supporter's future depends on the next Demon King. Moryong continues, saying that weak demons want to at least become favored vassals. Illustrating the situation, he shows how investors choose their candidates for the future. Seo Choi says he's comfortable with it, but imagines others don't like it. Nodding, Moryong confirms he's absolutely right about that. Moryong states that the complaints simply disappear, and begins to give an example. He then mentions the master of the Haiti clan, who was previously their supported candidate. Raising his hand, he begins to say that Seo Choi showed something important. Pointing directly, he says the boy proved to be the right partner for them. Then, Moryong explains he needs to prove his worth by crushing the other rivals. He continues, saying the unworthy are always left behind in the fierce festival. If he becomes king, Moryong will present his terms for a future decision. Asking him to accept the offer, Moryong tells him to see it as a gesture of goodwill. Gesturing with his hands, he presents a special item to the boy. Now in his new clothes, Seo Choi comments that they're very comfortable. At that, Seolhwa explains that he can summon the outfit whenever he needs to wear it. When asked about the spell, Hongryun teaches him to just say on and off. Clasping his hands, Seo Choi prepares to test the off command. Suddenly, the clothes begin to vanish quickly from his body. Beside him, Seolhwa demonstrates the speed by activating and deactivating her own outfit. Watching from a distance, Hongryun comments that Seolhwa seems to be having a lot of fun. She then reveals that the girl is a genius who has turned down several offers. Turning abruptly, Seolhwa glares at Hongryun and asks what she wants. Angrily, Seolhwa tells her to leave and asks if she's there to spy. Arriving just in time, Seo Choi asks her to calm down and questions the reason. Hongryun then explains they've discovered the location of a group of demons. She continues, saying Moryong wants to help by passing on information about them. Seolhwa becomes suspicious and asks how she got such specific information. Asking him not to lie, she asks if he remembers Master Yuseom. Seo Choi confirms immediately, saying he remembers the guy from the Haiti clan. She says that the previous night, he participated in the hunt with 2 others, so he asks if Yuseom was the one who gave her the demon's location. In a flashback, Hongryun reveals that the 2 demons accompanying him were killed. She finishes the story, explaining that the young master simply fled the battle. Surprised by the news, Seolhwa asks why she wasn't informed of the failure. Hongryun explains they only found out about the situation in the morning because he arrived late. Saying he was injured and in a panic, she says they took him in. According to her, his condition hasn't changed. He keeps repeating what happened. She assumes the fear and shame of failure left him in shock. Commenting on the situation, Seolhwa says he shamed his family by running away. She then asks if the judge knows already, as he should be notified. Replying, Seo Choi says the judge already knows, but doubts any action will be taken. Grabbing him, Seolhwa says it was just one failure and they'll deal with it later. Turning to leave, she warns that Solmi is having trouble with the cleaning. Looking back, she tells him to go see for himself if he's so bothered. She continues, warning that Mangtae and Solmi will try to stop him from going alone. Seolhwa then says he already knows the location and can go without permission. Stating that he won't rest, she says he wants to stop the demon. Seolhwa says she'd be there if she were him, and that's why she won't stop him. Giving one last piece of advice, she tells him to find out the demon's type. As she walks away, she tells him to be careful with demons that use magic. Opening a portal, she says the decision is his, and then disappears. At that, Seo Choi turns to Hongryun and asks her to tell him something. Looking at her, he asks to hear every detail Yusum shared. Cutting to a hotel scene, Yoshihiro asks where his sister is going. Yuzuru replies that she's obviously going for a walk, as she doesn't want to be stuck in her room. Suspicious, he asks if she's really just going for a walk around the city. She then reminds him that they are guests and need to follow the local rules. Sighing, she says the shamans seemed cooperative, but she doesn't believe it. Getting close to him, she asks if he thinks she would hunt demons there. Pointing at him, Yuzuru says he's being weird and should take his own advice. She then mentions that she wasn't the one who caused the trouble at the Sumida River. Before leaving, she says she'll be back for dinner and that he can call. He just watches the bedroom door slam shut in front of him. Alone, he doubts she would even answer the phone if he tried to call later. Arriving on the 14th floor, the elevator panel lights up and the door opens. Alone in the car, Yuzuru waits in silence with a very serious expression. Pressing a button, she decides she won't be staying there much longer. Without much effort, she summons a spirit to make the demon come to her. Looking at the creature, she asks for a great fortune and questions if it can be done. Agreeing, the spirit says the energy she has accumulated is quite large. It then explains that there are 7 types of fortune and prepares one of them. Taking the small scroll, she gives her thanks without knowing which luck was chosen for her. Down in the lobby, it's revealed that the spirit always chooses the necessary luck. Smiling, she says that with this, she can capture the demon very easily. But upon reading the scroll, she sees that the luck she received was for love. The message says that today, she will meet the man of her dreams. Across the street, everyone is startled by a scream. Crumpling the paper, Yuzuru wonders if this is really what she needed. Speaking to the taxi driver, Seo says it's fine and that he'll walk from there. At that, Yuzuru turns abruptly and stares at the person standing there. Sighing, he laments the situation he's just gotten himself into on the street. Walking down the street, he complains that he would have taken the bus if he had known. The scene changes. The story now takes place in Hangang Park, Seoul. Several people are strolling peacefully through the park, enjoying the sunny day. Sitting on a bench, Bi-hyung hears Chien say he seems to be having fun. Coming closer, Chien says she thought he hated all humans. Recognizing his colleague, he asks when Chien got there. Chien explains she came out just a few minutes ago so she wouldn't interrupt him. He says that hating and just observing observing are two different things. He then compares it to humans watching insects, even if they feel disgusted by them. Finishing his thought, he says it's fun to watch them squirm and struggle. Qian comments that she can't sympathize. He tells her it's because she's too young. Listening to the older man, she hears that she'll understand everything in time. Sighing, Qian asks if Ray and his siblings are all really dead. He replies that Weilun might be alive, but it would be the same. He assures her they'll try to get information from her, but they won't get anything. Qian admits she couldn't stop thinking about what happened last night. Recalling the night, Qian says she only understood everything when she went out alone. Sitting on the bench, she says it was foolish to only realize her feelings now. Furious, she yells that she should have devoured the 3 siblings for herself. Then she comments that she ate all night but is still hungry. Hearing her confession, Bi-hyung asks how many people she devoured last night. She then replies that she didn't count how many victims there were in total. Revealing the location, she says she ate everyone inside the building. Bi-hyung tells her she's free, as the deadline ended at midnight. As they walk, he informs her that he will no longer interfere with her actions. With a smile, Bi-hyung says the 7 of them are now free to do whatever they want. Looking at his phone, he predicts the news of the disappearances will come out after lunch. Suspicious, Bi-hyung asks how she knows the details of the siblings' fight. With a smile on her face, Qian simply confirms that yes, she was there. Going back to the previous night, she admits she was present at the scene of the confrontation. Hidden, she explains she had no business there, and it was all a coincidence. Then she reveals that what interested her was happening nearby. Smiling, she says it's nothing important, at least not for now. Back on the street, Siu Choi walks down the sidewalk as other people pass by. In front of him, he sees Yuzuru standing still, looking directly at him. Tilting her head, she wonders what the hell she's looking at. She then notices the demonic energy he's releasing without even trying to hide it. Considering the situation, she concludes there are only 2 possibilities. The first is that he's a human being manipulated by a demon's magic. Or the second, that he's trying to lure someone by pretending he can't control his energy. He then looks at his hand, observing the item he's holding tightly. Holding the tracking dagger, he prepares to use the magical artifact. Hongrian explains that a piece of the blade lodges itself inside the opponent. This way, whoever holds the dagger can track the target from a distance. Siu Choi understands that Yu Seom was hunting the demon with that piece of the blade. She answers that he can track it for over 1,000 kilometers. Hearing the explanation, he understands that he needs to use more energy to remove the blade. Once removed, a new blade grows back, but the enemy was too strong. Holding the dagger, he realizes that the only reason it's still broken is that the demon simply isn't trying to remove the blade on purpose. Following the energy, he arrives at an alley with a very suspicious building ahead. Already inside, one of the demons calls out to Tao, who is in the middle of the mess. Then, the bandaged demon points to his friend's arm, looking very worried. Seeing the wound, his companion asks if he doesn't need to take the blade out. Unconcerned, Tao says the wound isn't serious and finds it amusing. Suddenly, the other demon approaches and says he was going to ask about that. Outraged, he asks why Tao is luring hunters to their hideout. Worried, the companion warns that they won't be able to eat humans anymore with this kind of exposure. Looking at them both, Tao announces he will no longer eat human beings. Shouting, the other demon asks what he's going to eat if not humans, but he explains that his hunger is infinite and that he found an answer yesterday. Recalling the fight, he says his opponents were strong and his former self would have lost, but after defeating them, he says he finally felt completely satisfied. At that, Zen says he finally understands what he felt and that he was born for this. Tao declares that he now wants to hunt only those who give him pleasure in the act of eating. Finding it all absurd, the other demon says he's out and wants no trouble. With a smirk, Tao just asks if he's really sure about that. Accepting the decision, he says he understands they want very different things now, so he says their partnership ends here. It's a shame, but necessary. Hesitating, the companion extends his hand, realizing the implication of his words. In an instant, he's startled to see the other's hand in front of him. Smiling at his former companion, Tao simply wishes him good luck on his way. Thanking them for their time together, he says he learned a lot from them. Tao warns that it's best for them to stay far away from him from now on. Forcing a smile, he says his goodbyes, thanks him, and calls Tao a weirdo. Turning to Zen, he urges him to hurry so they can leave before sunset. Zen faces his partner and asks what he's still waiting for. Saying he wants to stay with Tao, he leaves the other demon completely shocked. He then explains they only survived because Tao fought for them the night before. He then states that his desire now is to become much stronger, like Tao. Angrily, the partner shouts at him to know his place and not be a fool. Turning around, Tao warns Zen that staying with him is dangerous and could get him killed, but he makes a promise, swearing that Zen will not die before him, no matter what. Watching the scene, Zen can only say Tao's name, still very surprised. Tired of the conversation, the partner says he's out of this whole charade. Then he asks if they mind if he eats everyone downstairs before he goes. Tao replies that he can go, but tells him to eat as much as he can. Finishing the sentence, he tells him to enjoy it before the sun finally sets. Changing locations, Seo Choi approaches a large, abandoned warehouse up ahead. Inside, Zen asks if Tao is okay, noticing he suddenly seemed strange. Holding his arm, Tao says he's fine and that it was just a surprise. Outside, Seo Choi knew he would come, but he didn't expect him so soon. In an old drawing, the demon is shown with its original and fearsome name. Prepared for the fight, Tao says it's time to welcome his guest. Seo Choi walks alone into the enormous, completely abandoned warehouse. As soon as he enters, he senses two presences coming from very different directions. Looking up, he can feel a demon's energy coming from the ceiling. Down below, he also notices the strong smell of blood. Faced with these two choices, he prepares to make an important decision. Outside, Yuzuru arrives and eyes the same building with suspicion. Seeing the place, she concludes that this is where demons usually feast. She then wonders why he went in without hesitating, since he must have noticed. Without a doubt, she realizes it's a trap. Crumpling the paper, she remembers that the child's fortune never fails her. Even with a love horoscope, she knows she'll find her dream man. But she questions it, as the message doesn't say exactly who this person would be. Thinking of Seo Choi, she dismisses the idea, finding him clumsy. Sensing the energy from above, she gets ready to enter the warehouse. Summoning her creature, Yuzuru orders Raiju to advance inside with her. Leaping with agility, Yuzuru's creature climbs to the top of the building. Landing inside, she and her summon prepare for whatever comes next. Looking around, she thinks she might have overestimated this weird place. Trembling with fear, Zen realizes the enemy doesn't seem to be a strong demon. Trying to encourage himself, he repeats to himself that he can do this. Unconcerned, she announces she'll simply destroy anyone who shows up. Meanwhile, Seo Choi carefully descends the dark stairs. Stopping suddenly, he stares into the darkness spreading before him. He then sees a demon devouring something on the floor, deep in the shadows. Sensing his presence, the demon turns in surprise and asks what he is. Walking towards it, Seo Choi approaches to confront the demons. He then asks how many of them are hiding in this place, changing the question. The demon figures the others went upstairs and calls the boy peculiar. Seeing a chance, it plans to escape after finishing its interrupted meal. Staring at the young man, it says that Seo Choi will serve as a substitute. Nodding, the demon is caught off guard by a sudden movement. Moving fast, he challenges the demon to catch him if it's really capable of fighting. Then, he lands a powerful punch right in the opponent's stomach. Spitting blood, the demon is shocked by the unbelievable speed of the attack. Without giving it time to react, he grabs the demon and prepares his strike. Then he throws the opponent with all his strength against the warehouse floor. Already on the ground, the demon hears that he will ask one last time. With a serious look, he asks how many of them there are and what their abilities are. Transforming its jaw, the demon screams for him not to dare underestimate it like that. Meanwhile, Seo Choi just watches the demon prepare for its next attack. In the blink of an eye, he's hit by a swift slash that cuts across his face. Laughing at the situation, the demon yells that he should have killed it when he had the chance. Then it warns that everyone there should know their place in the fight. From a distance, the demon says it will keep its range to land its attacks now. At that moment, several rapid slashes are launched at the young man at once. Hit by multiple cuts, he stands firm against the enemy's attack. Then, the demon lunges forward with another wide and powerful slash. The blow completely tears his left arm from his body. Taking the direct hit, the attack slices through his shoulder and chest. On the ground, his severed ear lies in a pool of blood. Breathing heavily, the demon seems exhausted after that barrage of attacks. It then asks what he is, since he should already be dead. Staring at his opponent, Seo says he understands the desperation to become stronger. Seo questions if this is all the strength it gained from that. Saying he won't accept it, Seo states that killing for an unjust cause is wrong. In a swift move, Seo lunges, catching it completely off guard. Right after, it strikes with a sharp, precise blow to Seo's fist. The impact severs the fist and it rolls away. Even with his hand cut off, Seo doesn't stop his attack. Almost defeated, it says they eat humans simply because they can. Lying on the ground, the demon says a predator eating its prey is natural. To this, Seo Choi simply agrees that his opponent is right about the hypocrisy. Without hesitation, he moves in and finishes the demon with a single, precise strike. Pulling an orb from the body, he holds it firmly in his bloodied hand. Turning to the body, he stares at the orb in his hand. On the floor, the demon's corpse lies in a pool of blood. He then brings the orb to his mouth, ready to devour it. Shifting to the floor above, a sudden electrical attack hits the area. On the ground, Zen says that something doesn't feel right. Beside her creature, Yuzuru asks where the group's leader is. Stammering, Zen says he doesn't know what she's talking about. She then replies that she's focused and watches the demon with full attention. Suddenly, a powerful electric attack hits Zen, knocking him to the ground. Looking at him, she concludes he's just an amateur who was left behind. Seeing the fallen demon, she considers capturing it alive for a bigger reward. Suddenly, Tao appears and says that Zen needs to change his attitude first. At that, Yuzuru realizes that onmyojis have more practical experience than other psychics. She was an expert in summoning, having exorcised over 100 demons. But even with all her experience, she hesitates for a moment. Walking calmly, Tao says that she needs to give the impression of being strong. She then realizes she can't sense his energy, yet he is a demon. Coming from downstairs, Xiu Choi says he didn't mean to deceive her. He then explains that his companion was enthusiastic, so he gave him a chance. Even so, Tao prepares for combat, ready for whatever comes next. But something catches his arm. With a swift movement, the weapon lunges towards Tao at an absurd speed. Xiu appears quickly to face Tao. Tao just smiles, seeing that the fight is finally about to get more interesting. Xiu Choi rushes forward and lands a powerful kick right in his opponent's face. He delivers a spinning kick, smashing it hard into Tao's face. Thrown backward, Tao crashes violently against the warehouse floor. Seeing this, Zen screams his companion's name, looking extremely worried. On the ground, Tao asks if she's some kind of psychic or something. Xiu Choi then tells her to leave, that there's nothing for her to do. Trying to help, she says she can fight too, but gets cut off. With a smile, Tao explains that he doesn't want any distractions while he fights. Looking at the young man, he asks if his impression is correct. He then says the kid wants this fight far more than he does. Furious at the situation, she's outraged at being called a distraction. Without a second thought, she grabs the golden item from her creature. As she unleashes its power, Tao asks who she thinks she's talking to. Ready to attack, she screams for Xiu Choi to get out of the way immediately. Turning around, he warns that he won't hold back his power just because she's there. Just then, she activates her artifact, unleashing the deer's thunder cry. Leaping into the air, she fires a wild bolt of lightning from her creature at the opponent. Tao and Zen can only watch as the powerful electrical attack rushes toward them. Aiming the artifact, she fires a second blast of energy at the two demons. She then realizes she can't conserve energy against such a strong opponent. Determined, she decides to use everything she has to crush them at once. Preparing herself, she summons the raging thunder, an even stronger attack. With a massive explosion, the lightning strikes the side of the building with great force. After the dust settles, she stands there, breathing heavily. She realizes that after just 2 bolts, her strength is already at half. She then understands that she isn't compatible with the energy of this country. Suddenly, Xiu Choi grabs her arm and the artifact, taking her by surprise. Telling her to relax, he stares at her with a serious expression. He then warns her that if she keeps this up, she's going to get hurt. Unleashing a blast of energy, he throws Yuzuru away from him to safety. From the side, she just watches him prepare to continue the fight alone. After all the commotion, the warehouse falls silent for a moment. Shocked, Yuzuru realizes the demon managed to escape, but then corrects herself. Xiu Choi explains that he didn't run away, as they are still connected by energy. Holding the thread, he pulls it tight, revealing the link between them. The energy thread stretches across the entire warehouse, connecting the two. Analyzing the situation, he says the demon's friend didn't seem very experienced, so he deduces the attack was just to ensure a safe escape. Getting ready to leave, he says he doesn't need her help to continue. Annoyed with him, she calls him absurd and turns to face him, but as she turns, she freezes completely at what she sees. With a menacing look, he says she knows nothing about being absurd. In an instant, he grabs her neck tightly, without any hesitation. Holding her, he says he's aware of how hard he's squeezing now. He then warns her that with just a little more force, he could break her neck. Pressing her, he warns her to do something or she'll die right there. Moving quickly, he steps back and dodges to the side with agility. Just then, he turns and looks back, seeming surprised by something. Looking down, he watches the small creature approaching him. Getting closer, Yuzuru's creature starts poking his leg. Without a word, he just keeps watching the scene with a serious expression. Releasing her neck, he slowly pulls his hand away, freeing her from his grip. Letting her fall, he apologizes and says it was necessary to be aggressive. He then explains that the previous attack was aimed only at him. He continues, saying the demon wanted to buy time by forcing him to rescue her. So he asks what other proof she needs to see that she isn't strong. Telling her to go back, he prepares to leave the place immediately. As he walks away, he says he doesn't want any more human deaths today. Before leaving, he warns that he has one more thing to tell her. Pointing down, he tells her about the victims' bodies in the building's basement. He asks her, please, saying that nobody would want to be found like that. After everything, day breaks, and the city seems calm for a moment. Walking through an alley, Seo Choi follows the energy thread connecting him to the demon. Pausing for a moment, he thanks him for the consideration he was shown. In front of him, Tao says he kept his promise thanks to his opponent. Cutting the thread, he notes that they are in a place with no humans nearby. He explains that it's a reconstruction area and everyone fled because of the rumors. Commenting on the location, he mentions that only a few curious people came to record. Seo Choi then picks up a pipe from the ground, preparing for the fight to come. Apologizing, Tao readies himself for combat, ready to start the fight. With a smile on his face, he says he's very excited about the battle. Leaping into the air, the two opponents move with incredible speed. They then charge forward, their powers clashing. But Tao notices something. Reacting quickly, Seo retaliates with a powerful kick straight to Tao's face. Gripping his sword firmly, Seo prepares to use his weapon. Using his sword, he lands a devastating blow right in the demon's chest. The force of the blow sends Tao flying into a building wall. Crashing through the structure, he continues flying, breaking everything in his path. Tao then stares at the kid, a surprised look in his eyes. Without wasting a second, Seo Choi leaps toward his fallen opponent. He lands another blow to Tao's head, who defends against the direct attack. Holding the pipe tightly, the fight between them seems evenly matched. But over time, the power difference between them begins to show. Then, Tao grabs the young man's face, embracing his own violent nature. He then lands a powerful punch, showing his advantage in the intense fight. Spitting blood, Seo Choi feels the full impact of the blow he just took. Changing scenes, Seolhwa says he was lucky with the demon pills. She then warns him never to take them again, no matter how much he protests. She explains that overloading on demonic energy can be very dangerous for him. As an example, she mentions the kobold that went insane because it couldn't handle the power. Continuing her warning, she says he could become an uncontrollable monster. Back in the fight, Tao admits the young man is seriously incredible and impressive. He then says that yesterday's opponents were nothing compared to him. Wiping the blood from his mouth, he reveals a small hidden orb. His eyes fixed on it, Tao asks what that beautiful thing is. Just then, the goblin mask manifests as the species' third ability. In a village, someone starts telling a story about seeing a goblin with their own eyes. Inside a house, a man says the storyteller always exaggerates. He explains that a giant demon appeared, but a goblin showed up and saved him. Asking what it was like, the other man wants more details about the creature's appearance. He replies that the creature was huge, twice his size and width, but he says that aside from its size, it looked like a human with very normal features. Laughing, the listener says it must have been a human, not a goblin. Denying it had horns, he's told there's a different story about that. At this, a third man becomes thoughtful, saying he doesn't doubt the story he just heard. Stating it with certainty, he says the goblin he saw didn't have any horns. Surprised, the other man asks if he's ever seen a goblin, and he confirms that he has. Flashing back to the past, he remembers when he was young and saw two goblins fighting. He describes them as looking human, but they were staring each other down in silence, ready for combat. Back in the present, the man asks if he's sure about the lack of horns. Then he reveals that the two of them simply vanished without a trace. He continues, describing that both wore something pointy, maybe a mask or a helmet. Then he says that after that, he couldn't see them anymore. They just disappeared from sight. Confirming the story, he remembers running as the entire mountain shook. Filling their cups, the other man says arguing about it is pointless. He comments that many legends about demons often stem from some truth. The scene changes, and it's explained that human interpretation distorts the original truth. For example, it's revealed that a goblin's horn isn't part of its body. It's actually a combat mask, a treasure made of demonic energy. Furthermore, the story about goblins turning invisible also has its details. It's explained that the legend of invisibility is only a half-truth. Goblins who wear the mask don't actually disappear completely from sight. They just become too fast to be seen, even by other demons. Suddenly, a violent impact occurs, causing a huge explosion. As the dust settles, Tao faces his opponent with a smile. Then, Tao's hand appears to be completely shattered. Landing a powerful blow, Seo hits Tao right in the face. The impact sends Tao flying backward, spitting as he goes. His feet drag across the ground from the force of the attack he received. Next, Tao headbutts Seo. After the exchange of blows, the two stare each other down for a brief moment. Preparing for a counterattack, Tao lunges forward with a smile on his face, but he's grabbed by his clothes before he can complete his move. Lifting his rival into the air, he spins him with impressive force. Using one of his techniques, he prepares to throw his opponent. The scene changes, and a tremor is felt between the buildings of a city. Suddenly, something hits one of the buildings, causing massive destruction to the wall. After the crash, a lot of debris and dust begins to fall. Moving down to an alley, The camera shows where the demon finally landed. His feet land in a puddle that has formed on the ground. Even without both arms, Tao gets up and faces his opponent. Landing in the alley, he finally stops after throwing his opponent. He instinctively understands the new abilities the mask has just granted him. It enhances the potential of his skills, but it works in a very different way. Because of this, Seo knew his power had grown too much for him to control. Feeling pain for the first time, he realizes his hands are shaking badly. Meanwhile, his energy is being consumed at 3 times the normal rate. Realizing the situation, he notes that he won't be able to last long in this state. In response, Tao says he's incredible and that he's learned a lot from their fight. Clenching his fist, he says he now understands his true strength and speed. With his arms regenerated, Tao thanks him, saying he's happy they met. Dropping his items, he tells Tao not to thank him for anything. Biting his own finger, he tells the monster to just die already. But Tao just laughs, saying that unfortunately he can't do that right now. With a smile, he charges forward, saying he's having more fun than ever before. The fight resumes and the impact causes another huge explosion on the building's rooftop. Moving at high speed, he rushes his opponent with everything he's got. Exchanging rapid blows, the two are evenly matched in the fight. The force of the impact causes the ground beneath their feet to crack completely. It's explained that their speed and power were nearly identical, but the first to reach their limit would be the one who couldn't handle the power. To make matters worse, Tao prepares a new attack, gathering energy in his hands. Unleashing the power, he hits Seo square in the chest. The attack generates a massive explosion right at the point of impact. Thrown against the wall, it's revealed that goblins aren't the only ones who evolve. Tao awakens a new magic, saying he never knew he could do something like this. Getting up once more, Seo faces his enemy, ready to continue the fight. Then Tao unleashes a great wave of power toward his opponent. Leaping at the last second, Seo manages to dodge the incoming attack. He then prepares a counterattack, concentrating new energy in his hand. Releasing his power, he creates an explosion that clashes with his rival. With the mask's power, he prepares for the final confrontation against Tao. Neither of the two monsters was willing to give up on this intense battle. Clenching his fist, he concentrates all his energy for a single blow. Then, he launches his attack, releasing the power stored in his hand. They clash with force, knowing they need even greater destructive power. Facing each other, both decide to surpass their limits at the same time. Combining their magic, Tao begins to materialize a new weapon for the fight. He thus creates the Supreme Wave Spear, an extremely powerful item. Unintimidated, Seo also prepares his own weapon for the final showdown. Charging forward, Tao rushes at high speed with his spear in hand. The clash between them causes a gigantic explosion of water. After the impact, Tao reappears amid the rubble, greatly weakened. Even in defeat, he admits it was a shame, but accepts the outcome of the fight. He even says that Seo's weapon was cooler before he fell. Victorious, Seo looks down at his opponent on the ground, exhausted and missing an arm. Approaching from behind, a mysterious figure says the fight was simply incredible. As he gets closer, he comments that Seo has gotten much stronger since then. Saying he looks like a pure goblin, he finally says it's good to meet him. Revealing his name, he introduces himself as Bi Hyung and says he's a goblin too. Facing the newcomer, Seo remains on high alert amidst the rubble. With a calm look, he simply tells Seo to relax a little. As Seo remains suspicious, Bi Hyung warns that he won't get involved in the fight with Tao. Suddenly, a piece of debris is hurled across the ground at high speed. Caught by surprise, Seo reacts as he sees Bi Hyung moving away. Turning to Seo, he comments that Tao seems quite happy with everything. Looking at the demon on the ground, he says the outcome would have been different. With a smile, he says it doesn't matter, as there will always be a next time. Charging from behind, Seo yells that there won't be a next time. Unleashing his power, he delivers a massive blow towards Bi Hyung. Showing surprise, he faces the incoming attack with a serious look. He comments that he barely managed to defend against the attack using roots that shot out from the ground. Holding the weapon, he says that Seo's true form is sharp. At that moment, Seo understands the ability he should have been using against his enemies. He notices it wasn't just strength that stopped his previous attack. It was the complete version of the technique that diverts impact through the Earth's surface. With the weapon in hand, Bi Hyung says it's a relief that he recognizes the skill. Letting go of the weapon, he lets it fall to the ground right in front of him. Jumping back, Seo hears Bi Hyung say he understands how confusing the situation is. He continues, saying that Seo was told he was the only goblin left, but Seo replies that he's not confused and doesn't care about that right now. Grabbing him by his clothes, Seo asks if he's the one they were looking for. With a smile, Bi-hyung confirms he's the one who brought the foreign demons. Then he asks if Seo wants to know the reason he did all this. Saying he'll tell him everything, he claims he always wanted to talk to him. His eyes then gleam as he prepares to finally start talking. Without waiting, Seo lunges forward with his weapon in a direct surprise attack. Bi-hyung just watches the blow approach without showing any major reaction. Then he starts to give Seo some advice as a fellow goblin. Cutting him off, Seo lands a powerful punch right in his stomach. Even while bleeding, he advises him to keep one foot on the ground when fighting someone strong. Explaining the roots skill, he says it can deflect most attacks. Then he prepares to show how the technique works for an attack. Unleashing a powerful attack, he hurls Seo with full force against a nearby wall. The impact slams Seo into the wall, which shatters from the violence. Clenching his fist, he explains that the technique releases maximum power without expending energy. But he praises Seo for learning the basics of being a goblin on his own. Walking through the rubble, he suddenly asks if Seo happens to like dogs. Without waiting for an answer, he says that dogs are better than humans, but he says that sometimes they can be annoying, baring their teeth and biting. Getting close to Seo, he says that in those cases it's the owner's fault. He then says it's repulsive when weak beings don't know their place. With a frightening smile, he says he sees them as ignorant and worthless. Outraged, Seo says he can't be serious, but he tells him not to get things confused. With a smile, he says he hates humans, but they're not the only ones. Beginning his story, he says that long ago there was no demon king or laws. He explains that there was only power and the food chain it created. As such, weak humans and demons were just food for the stronger ones. With a smile, he says it's funny how demons wait to eat. Bi-hyung says these demons are like livestock, thinking they're predators while being protected. Recalling the past, he says, Seo knows how humans don't know their place. Protected by the law, they do things without taking responsibility for their actions, acting as if they have the right to step on others without any consequences. And the worst part is, they don't even know they're actually being protected. So he asks Seo to imagine a world without all this absurd protection. In that world, there would be no laws, and the only standard that would matter is power. With no way to protect themselves, the irresponsible would just hide with their mouths shut. Outraged, Seo says that sounds like something a child would say, but Bi-hyung just laughs. Standing up, he says he doesn't expect Seo to understand, as their values are too different. Facing Seo, he says that they'll just change that from now on. Bi-hyung says he gained his interest after Seo won the fight against Tao. With a smile, he invites him to come with him and learn everything, but Seo asks what happens if he just refuses the whole offer. Bi-hyung replies that it's fine, since he doesn't have a choice anyway. Telling him to relax, Bi-hyung approaches as Seo's arm reacts. Asking if he's sure, Bi-hyung warns that any resistance will be useless. Suddenly, he turns around, noticing a new figure emerging in the background. His expression changes upon seeing the unexpected arrival that suddenly appeared. Just then, Yuzuru appears, preparing a technique with an item in hand. Using their ability, they launch an electric attack towards Bi-hyung. Not intended to injure, the attack only served to paralyze Bi-hyung. Seizing the opportunity, Seo rushes at high speed to attack the enemy. He then lands a powerful punch directly to Bi-hyung's head. Crashing with force, his fist squarely hits the opponent's face. With the impact of the blow, Bi-hyung is sent flying far into the air. It's explained that Seo's recovery was slow for a very specific reason. His body was focusing on the bizarre change that happened to his weapon in the last fight. He didn't know the reason for the change, nor the principles behind its power, but he was sure of what he felt, remembering the legend about his weapon. Being a weapon that reflects its owner's desire, it changes its form. Until that moment, Seo had already used this ability to defend himself and fight. He always transformed it into various different forms for each type of situation. But this time, what he created wasn't just a situational weapon. His weapon now contained the strong emotion of reaching his final goal. Recalling the cycle, he knows that demons eat humans and humans are eaten. Unable to stop this chain of tragedy, he couldn't do anything before. However, he could at least focus on the target within his reach. Saying he will kill him, Seo releases his emotion through his weapon. At this, Bi-hyung lets out a somewhat nervous laugh in the face of the imminent threat. Grabbing the weapon, the feeling that takes over is pure bloodlust. Carrying its owner's will, the weapon reveals its true and powerful form. He then unleashes a gigantic power that spreads throughout the city below. Watching the scene from afar, Yuzuru is paralyzed by what just happened. Even exhausted, Seo raises his weapon, now transformed into a massive war axe. Standing amid the wreckage, He holds his now fully transformed weapon. Seeing this, Yuzuru wonders where all his strength comes from. At that moment, his power was comparable to that of an archdemon from the underworld. Then, he charges forward and swings the axe toward Yuzuru. About to strike, he yells for her to duck in time. With no time to react, Yuzuru just stares as the blow comes her way. But his attack is deflected and aimed at Bi-hyung instead. And Seo realizes he didn't even scratch Bi-hyung. Appearing suddenly, Bi-hyung says he never ceases to amaze with his growth. Even exhausted, Seo realizes he couldn't land a single scratch on the enemy. Asking how it feels, Bi-hyung says it's not so bad using the weapon. With the sky in the background, he says it's a shame he isn't killing anyone. His hand regenerates as he says he has to compensate as an adult of his species. Then he attacks Seo, swinging his weapon in a swift blow. His attack hits squarely. Realizing the situation, Bi-hyung says things have just gotten much more complicated. From the impact of the block, Seo's weapon shatters into pieces. Thrown backward, Seo lands far away as the girl watches the scene. Walking forward, Bi-hyung explains that the weapon's true form strengthens a single purpose. He continues, saying Seo's weapon was made only to kill him. Using an offensive weapon to defend is like parrying a blow with your body. Because of that, he says it would have been better if Seo had used his body from the start. Bi-hyung asks if she isn't a human from that country. Turning around, she hears him ask if Yuzuru is a shaman from Japan. With a dark look, he warns that Yuzuru should have checked the situation beforehand. Looking at Seo, he says he'll let her live on one condition. The deal is that he'll let her live if Seo drops what he's holding. As she is grabbed, she recognizes the item as a pill from the Yanghoi house. With a smile, he warns that every medicine has a dangerous side effect. He explains that Seo overloaded his crystal, and the outcome is now uncertain. Seeing him exhausted, Bi-hyung says he already knows he can't do anything. Holding the girl, he tells Seo to drop everything and come with him, but the girl yells for him not to listen as Seo raises the pill. She claims she's been prepared her whole life to die in an exorcism. With an irritated face, Bi-hyung says she's starting to bother him. Suddenly, the girl starts screaming with a pained expression. Telling her to know her place, Bi-hyung is hit by a swift slash. Suddenly, something slashes his hand. He stands still, not understanding where the attack came from. Surprised, Bi-hyung looks to the side, trying to see who suddenly attacked him. On the other side, a man with glasses appears and clenches his fist. Ready. Charging forward, he lands a series of rapid punches on Bi-hyung. In the middle of the chaos, a hand appears and grabs Seo's arm. Then Goeyu tells him to stay put, warning him not to use any more energy. Confused by his arrival, Seo asks what Goeyu is doing there. With a smile, Goeyu replies that it's a little late to be asking that question. Pointing to the destruction, he tells Seo to take a look at the damage. Meanwhile, Yuzuru composes herself, with Goeyu and Yu-young nearby. Seeing his concern, Goeyu assures him that fortunately, Yuzuru is fine, but he says he can't guarantee the same for their opponent. Exchanging blows, the man in the suit and Bi-hyung fight at high speed. Then the man in the suit prepares to launch another direct attack. Dodging at the last second, Bi-hyung manages to escape the incoming blow. He blocks a kick, saying it's a shame what's happening. Throwing his rival away, he says their strength doesn't compare. Grabbing his arm, Bi-hyung warns that his attacks have no effect. Suddenly, Bi-hyung starts bleeding from his mouth and eyes. Goeyu then explains that his clan lacks strength, revealing their inherent magic. With his magic, small drops of water begin to boil in the air. Bleeding from his eyes and mouth, Bi-hyung is struck by a blood technique. Introducing himself as Yu-young, he says he needs to use tricks against martial arts. Then Bi-hyung reacts to the magic, which changes the form and properties of water. It's explained that the spell's effectiveness depends on the water's purity and proximity. For this reason, the clan usually uses attacks with groundwater and steam. Bi-hyung understands the close combat was a ploy to use his own blood in the spell. The technique of boiling blood is described as something very rare and difficult. With his hands, Yu-young prepares to launch his next attack against the opponent. He then moves his finger, activating the spell he just prepared. With a surprised expression, Bi-hyung faces the attack coming his way. From his hand, Yu-young fires a high-speed water projectile at him. Seeing the explosion, Bi-hyung says the power is extreme for a single drop. In response, Yu-young states that every species has its own strengths. Then he prepares several drops of water, which begin to float around him. Launching them all at once, he causes a series of explosions in the neighboring buildings. Approaching Seo, Goeyu says he's probably used to this situation. He continues, saying Seo already fought against the magic of the Heite yesterday. Seo remembers the fight, noticing that their energy is very similar, but he realizes there's a huge power difference between the two mages. He could see through the other's magic, but this one was very different. Goeyu explains that skills vary even among the same species of demon. He states that Yu-young is unparalleled among all members of the Heite clan. Facing Bi-hyung, Yu-young watches his opponent amidst the smoke and rubble. He notes that Bi-hyung's recovery is incredible, even against the blood magic. Annoyed, Bi-hyung says he was just starting to get the hang of the fight. Calling out to Goayu, Yu-young warns that he's going all out on his next attack. Asking him to take care of the others, Yu-young prepares for a major confrontation. Watching from a distance, the girl senses the immense energy that is building up. Clenching his fists, he concentrates all his power in one place. From the ground, an immense amount of water rises, forming a giant pillar. Understanding the strategy, Bi-hyung says he has gathered all the water in the vicinity. From the water, a huge monster with a terrifying face begins to form. Pointing at Bi-hyung, Yu-young gives his creature the command to attack. Rising up in the city, an immense water creature begins to form. Completely paralyzed, Yuzuru stares at the scene, unable to react. Beside Goayu, Seo comments that the creature is huge. He then recognizes the magic as the same one from the Yang Hoi house. Recalling the attack, he says that power has already destroyed a house before. Yu-young then calls the creature by its name, revealing it to be Ishimi. Pointing forward, he gives the order for it to advance. In response, the creature lunges forward with impressive speed. With that, the water monster charges straight at its target. Even injured, Bi-hyung challenges him, telling him to bring it on. Blood starts to trickle from one of his eyes during the confrontation. As he's pushed back, he tries to resist the force of the attack. Stopping suddenly, he says he's finally understood what's happening. Right after, a huge impact occurs right in front of him. Hit by the blast, Yuzuru shields herself from the impact with her arm. From her hiding spot, Yuzuru carefully watches what's happening. Just then, Yoshihiro grabs her, and they are both surprised by the situation. Protecting the girl, he sees Goayu creating a protective barrier. Then Goayu finishes his move, raising a wall around them. His technique is complete, trapping the two inside. Seen from above, the sphere rests in the center of a giant crater. It's revealed that the Heidai and Black Turtle clans are incompatible. It's shown that their methods of manipulating water cancel each other out. Goayu then confirms their combination was as bad as he feared. Panting, Yu-young stares at the crater and says it was good they joined forces. Turning to his partner, Goayu asks if Yu-young is feeling alright. He replies that he's just catching his breath after so long. Looking at the chasm, he comments that he doesn't know if this was the desired outcome. Standing at the edge, the two observe the immense crater that has formed. Down below, Yoshihiro states that there are now only two possibilities. He says he either overestimated the enemy or the enemy didn't want to fight. Yu-young replies it was the second option, as he was already thinking about the next fight. Confused, Goayu asks why the enemy would care so much about him. Adjusting his tie, Yu-young remains silent for a brief moment. Siu and Yuzuru just watch the strange conversation between them. Then, Yu-young raises his hand and activates a spell right on the ground. Rising from the ground, the power suddenly strikes Siu. The impact sends Siu flying into a pile of rubble. Turning to Goayu, she yells, asking what he thinks he's doing. She then glares at Yu-young and questions why they were attacked. He tells her not to worry, as he did what anyone would do. Looking at the fallen Yoshihiro, Yu-young says he can leave now. He then tells Yuzuru that nothing there can threaten her anymore. Declaring the matter closed, he warns that humans should not interfere. After everything, the city is scarred by the massive destruction. Changing scenes, the story now takes place in a modern building. Elsewhere, Tao is sitting on the floor, covered in wounds. Approaching him, Chen comments that he's a shadow demon, just like him. He then says Tao looks like a great snack for later. At that, Bi-hyung interrupts and tells them to try and get along. Walking towards them, Bi-hyung says he doesn't care if they eat each other. Chen then asks Bi-hyung if he's even still alive. With a smile, Bi-hyung admits the opponent managed to catch him by surprise. Explaining the situation, he says the kid understood his magic perfectly. He reveals that his roots release shockwaves through the ground. That means his power doesn't work if the ground is unstable. Realizing the strategy, he understands the enemy messed up the ground on purpose. Chen replies that he'll remember that when he eats him later. Excited, Bi-hyung says the kid faced him better than the Heitei clan did. Drinking something, Qian asks why he didn't keep fighting then. Looking at the sky, Bi-hyung says he wanted to fight, but was stopped. Not understanding the explanation, Qian is completely confused by the answer. She then stares at her partner, trying to process what she just heard. Suddenly, the weather changes and a heavy rain begins to fall. Bi-hyung explains that the rain made him retreat, because it wasn't in the forecast. He says facing those two in the rain would be too big of a risk. With that, Bi-hyung warns that Qian would probably die in the middle of the fight. He says he had to take care of Tao, and that the others were protecting someone. With a smile, he regrets not catching Xiao, but saves it for later. Changing scenes, Xiao slowly begins to open his eyes. His vision focuses on the ceiling lights, still not understanding where he is. Waking up suddenly, he wonders where he is now. Trying to move, he realizes his entire body is in a lot of pain. Then, he hears someone's footsteps approaching his room. Standing beside the bed, Yu-young appears, fiddling with his phone. Vibrating non-stop, his phone starts to ring on the bed. Answering the call, Yu Young introduces himself to the person on the other end. He then just listens silently to his superior's response. With a bow, he thanks them for their concern and says he's fine. After hanging up, he mentions that he had to miss work today. Opening a briefcase, he asks how Seo Choi is feeling now. About the mask, he explains that it was awakened only a short time ago. Its magic, he warns, increases power, but it consumes a lot of energy. Because of that, he says he had no other choice before. The only option was to force a total shutdown of that immense power. Apologizing, he says he acted on instinct in the face of danger. Changing the subject, he reveals that he wants to talk about his brother, Yuseom. As a representative of the clan, he apologizes on behalf of his brother. Replying that it's not necessary, Seo asks about the other demon. Seo says the enemy used the same goblin magic he did. Admitting his mistake, Mangtae says he needs to reveal the whole truth. Finally, Mangtae reveals that the demon's name is Bi-hyung, his ancestor. Heavy rain falls on the city as people walk the streets shielding themselves. Feeling the drops on her hand, she remarks that it rains in the human world too. She notes that humans are stronger than she previously imagined. Solmi thanks her for the help, admitting she didn't know how to handle the witnesses. Recalling the event, she says the situation would have spiraled out of control without assistance, but Seolwa tells her to thank Siu since she used up his time. Apologizing, she admits she wanted to help, but ended up doing the opposite. Arriving at the cafe, the sign on the door indicates it is open. Nearby, two girls talk about one of them being dumped. Hearing the conversation, Solmi covers her mouth in surprise. Not understanding a thing, Seolwa asks her friend what that was about. Solmi explains that customers only go there to see the owner. Entering the cafe, the two head toward the service counter. Seeing them arrive, Goyu mentions the place is already closed for the day, but upon recognizing them, he greets the two. Realizing who they are, Solmi asks why he's closing if he was the one who called them. Replying that he barely should have opened at all, he asks what they want to drink. Solmi orders her usual, but Seolwa needs to pick something from the menu. Sitting at the table, Solmi complains about how many coffees she has drunk there. Meanwhile, Seolwa simply enjoys her order in complete silence. Returning to speak with them, he offers some tea recommendations. Suddenly, Seolwa gets irritated and asks what he's looking at. Seeing the commotion, someone yells from the back, telling Seolwa to calm down. Rushing to intervene, Solmi says he's just an innocent boy, but Seolwa claims to know exactly who that arrogant, conceited boy is. Citing a proverb, she says that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Solmi adds that a fox is trying to take the tiger's throne. Seolhwa then explains that the concept of a nemesis also exists among demons. It is shown that the hostile relationships of animals continue when they become demons. However, it is explained that their original strength is not always maintained. This rivalry also applies to the descendants of both clans. Noticing the tension, Goyu tells Solmi not to worry about the situation. Cleaning the counter, he states he won't strike back like an uneducated beast. Releasing her power, she threatens him, saying she could easily end him right there. Unfazed, he simply replies that it's fine by him. Suddenly, a voice interrupts, ordering the young master to stop immediately. Surprised by the interruption, Solmi says she can't let her guard down for a second. Arriving at the scene, she scolds him for picking a fight on his first day. Annoyed, he grumbles that the fox was the one who stared and threatened him first. Walking up to him, she warns that following the rules isn't always enough. Placing a hand on him, she reveals he is arguing with an important figure. She then warns that in the end, the blame will fall entirely on him. Watching the scene, the two realize she knew this from the start. Taking a step back, Seolwa says she doesn't want to kill the last tiger. Solmi observes that despite the provocation, Seolwa is backing down from the fight after all. She then comments that this mix of facts is quite ironic. Continuing, she says the one looking after him is an ancient and wicked spirit. The woman tells him to fix himself up, but Seolwa warns him not to listen to her. Turning to Goyu, she asks why he called them there. The other woman also asks what happened, as they were supposed to stay hidden. Goyu explains that the judge granted licenses for strong demons to help. Saying things have changed, he then calls for Seolhwa directly. Next, he also calls out the names Hwanwi and Wolyung. He reveals that all the other demons have been sent back home. Surprised by the news, Solmi asks what happened to Seo Choi. Hongryun answers, saying Siu is an exception to the order. Worried, she asks if he was sent alone to the demon world. Seolhwa agrees he isn't weak, but his power is incomplete. She explains that, being human, He would be devoured in a few days. Decided, she announces she will train Seo for a month as per the agreement. With a sigh, he says Seo is still here and she should listen. Revealing her new objective, he warns that Seo's fate is at stake. He then explains her mission will be to protect the boy from humans themselves. The scene shifts back to the room where Seo Choi is recovering. Still in bed, he asks if Bi Hyung really was an ancestor of his. Thinking of the enemy's appearance, he wonders what his true age might be. Mang Tai then reveals the demon could be over 1,500 years old. Confirming the name, Seo is shocked at the idea of a demon living so long, but Yu Young explains that demons live an average of only 500 years. To live longer, he says one must accumulate a great deal of demonic energy. Still confused, Seo questions how the enemies could be so old. Yu Young replies that his appearance does not match his actual age. Lamenting the result, he admits his strongest attack didn't even scratch him. Calling himself incompetent, Mang Tae cuts him off, telling him not to put himself down. Mang Tae then says only Seolwa and Goyu are at his level today. Revealing a secret, Mang Tae speaks of the goblins' disappearance 666 years ago. He reveals the goblins split into two groups and clashed. Even though they won, the victorious group suffered greatly and was nearly wiped out too. Believing they were extinct, he says the last goblin died of his wounds. Because of this, he thought Seo was a secret descendant of the last goblin. Mang Tae adds that their life expectancy reinforced this theory, but Bi Hyung from the defeated group emerged with the same strength as before. Seo then realizes that if they are alive, they could be his ancestors. Pointing out the real problem, he questions why Bi Hyung stayed hidden until now. He then states they need to find out why his bloodline was exposed now. At that moment, he asks if Seo's mother is a normal human. Opening the door, Seo's mother enters and calls his name. A flashback begins at school, as he remembers an apology. His mother apologizes profusely, saying it was all her fault. The teacher then assures her it wasn't a problem, asking her to calm down. Clarifying the situation, she says the older student started the fight. It all started when they tried to take his friend's soccer ball. That's when the fight broke out, as Seo demanded they give the ball back immediately. Fortunately, she explains that the other boy's parents remained silent. Thanking her for her help, his mother bows and says goodbye to the teacher. Leaving the school behind, the two walk together in silence. Turning to her son, she asks if he's angry with her. Holding her hand, he says no, because he was the one who fought. But she explains that sometimes, things like this are unavoidable. Hugging her son, she says she hopes that day never has to come. Looking back, he realizes what his mother was really doing. Asking for a promise, he understands it wasn't about the dangers of violence. With his finger, Seo Choi makes the promise to his mother. Thinking about it now, he realizes it was more like a special favor. Wondering why, he recalls the hug he received that day. Even without understanding, he knew it was a very important request for her. Keeping his promise, he never hurt anyone again, until he became a demon. Back in the present, he explains that his father was a fighting champion. He believes the goblin bloodline came from his father's side. As for his mother, he explains she's just an ordinary human. Pointing to Mang Tae, he says maybe she didn't tell him on purpose. Looking away, he notes that the meaning of his existence has changed. Mang Tae agrees, saying he was more human than demon. With a smile, Seo says it's annoying to hear they expected nothing. Yu Yong praises him, saying his growth has been extraordinary in recent days. Mang Tae then reveals his doubts, suspecting a larger plan from Bi Hyung. Shouting in anger, Seo says that theory is completely ridiculous. Mang Tae reassures him, affirming his innocence. Seo then asks why he's being treated as a threat. Yu Yong reveals that the shamans see him as Bi Hyung's accomplice. Surprised, Seo hears about the various disappearances that have occurred in the country. He says the police confirm that the residents of a building have vanished. Public opinion online has turned to chaos with these recent events. With a serious look, he says they prepared for weeks. The shamans even asked the country's leaders for help to cover it all up, but he says it all happened before even 24 hours had passed. Watching the news, Seo notices the growing interest in the disappearances. Mang Tae explains that the shamans now need to compensate for their incompetence. Fortunately, no one died, but the destruction was seen by many people. Using this as a pretext, the shamans are demanding his extradition. Without denying his actions, Seo says he acted on his own, but Mang Tae defends him, saying his enemy had broken demonic law. Declaring the decision is his, Mang Tae says the shamans have violated his authority. With a sigh, Seo says they don't need to worry, even if he's taken away. But Mang Tae promises to protect him and his mother at all costs. Surprised, Seo asks about his mother, not understanding what's happening. Yu Yong explains that the shamans now see his mother as a sinner. The tension rises, and the two stare at Seo with serious expressions. Suddenly, a window at the back of the room bursts open. Without a second thought, Seo jumps towards the open window. Seo moves forward, determined to leave that place, but Mang Tae holds him back, saying he understands his reasons for going. Blocking his path, he warns that this is what the shamans want. Falling to the floor, he's told that someone has already been sent to protect her. Yu Young then asks him to listen, as his current state is dangerous. Kneeling on the floor, Seo says it's all his fault. Bound and restrained, he says the situation got out of control because of him. Admitting his ignorance, he says he didn't think about the consequences of his actions. With tears in his eyes, he begs them to understand his concern. Using all his strength, he struggles to break free from his restraints. Outside the building, a loud crash echoes through the city. Suddenly, the clothing binding him tears completely apart, freeing him. Now free, he takes on his demonic form, ready to escape. Surprised, Mangtae realizes he broke free using only his strength. Apologizing, he promises to return after checking on his mother's safety. Leaping through the broken window, he escapes the apartment and flees through the city. Staring at the hole in the wall, the two stand still, watching him flee. Mangtae then asks why Yu Yong just let the boy escape. With an awkward smile, Yu Yong can't find an excuse for it. He then explains there was no water nearby for him to use. Someone reminds him it was raining, and he's left speechless. With a smile, Yu Yong says he also went easy on him, as his magic doesn't tear so easily. Looking at the pieces on the floor, Mangtae just lets out a brief, disdainful sigh. Taking responsibility, he says the current situation is his fault. Besides, he says he's not cold enough to ignore a son crying for his mother. Cutting to another location, the sun sets between the city buildings. Trying to call her son, she worries when he doesn't answer the phone. Just then, the doorbell starts to ring, interrupting her thoughts. Approaching the door, she asks who is outside the apartment. Appearing behind her, Seolwa uses a power and tells her to be quiet. Completely dominated by the power, her eyes begin to glow uncontrollably. Seeing the door break, she realizes Solmi was right about humans. Furious, she says that humans annoy her and slams the door shut. Appearing at the door, Yusin warns that it doesn't matter how many enemies she brought with her. Threatening to finish them all, he tells Seolhwa to kneel so she won't die. Using his magic, Yusin whispers the command word to her. With this power, Seolhwa can manipulate her target's senses. Resisting the control, he readies his sword for the imminent combat. Seeing that he didn't attack, she tells Solmi to enter the room. Relieved, Solmi says she was afraid of being too late. Kneeling, Yusin scolds her, saying the shaman was too weak. With Siu's mother, Seolhwa asks him to take her away. Surprised, the two of them feel a powerful presence approaching. A strange energy begins to surround the entire block where they are. Shocked, Solmi realizes that this feeling is completely new to her. Seolhwa then understands that they instinctively know what just happened. Noticing the barrier, she understands that this was all planned in advance. Getting up, the shaman questions why they sent someone first. Unintimidated, he prepares to face the powerful opponent. Surprised, Seolhwa wonders how he broke free from her power. Disarming his opponent, he knocks the sword away with a single strike. With a loud clatter, the sword falls and slides across the apartment floor. Resting on the floor, the weapon is now out of its owner's reach. Warning that he doesn't want to fight, he says he's there to protect her. Hugging the woman, Solmi recognizes the newcomer with surprise in her eyes. Questioning his identity, Seolhwa asks if he's really Seo's friend. Saying they don't have time, he warns them about the barrier on the building. Seolhwa replies that they can easily destroy the barrier from the inside. Confused, he doesn't understand the reason for their distrust. Seolhwa then explains that he is a shaman first, a friend second. Solmi agrees, saying that talking to him could be dangerous for them. Understanding the situation, he lowers his arm and accepts their mistrust. Controlling his rage, he decides to take drastic measures to prove his point. Seeing his reaction, Seolhwa realizes she already knew what would happen. He begins to strike himself, attacking his own body several times. Shocked by the scene, the two girls can't react in time. Struggling to breathe, he explains that he paralyzed his energy points. Declaring himself a normal human, he tells them they can read his thoughts. Warning him of the danger, Seolhwa says she could use him like a puppet. Panting, he replies that he knows the risk, but it will help her evacuate. Solmi then questions him, asking why he's going so far. With a tired smile, he replies that they're friends, and that's all. Laughing, Seolhwa doesn't seem to believe the answer she just heard. Solmi helps him, saying he's either a fool or a great friend. Accepting the truce, Seolhwa asks what the shamans are up to now. Elsewhere, Seo runs through the streets towards his home. Despite the pain, he keeps running as fast as he can. Stopping suddenly, he feels a powerful presence that makes him hesitate. Looking at the building, he realizes there's something strange nearby. Suddenly, a figure appears and says he must be Seo. Introducing himself, he says his name is Jagwang Im. Shocked by the revelation, he recognizes the name of the shaman agency. This reminds him of Yusin, and he questions the man's connection. Without further ado, the man tells him to surrender immediately. To make matters worse, he explains that the barrier has closed and his mother is caught inside. Walking towards him, he warns that running will only make things worse. With a determined look, Seo decides he'll have to fight now. Suddenly, a masked figure silently appears behind the boy. Caught by surprise, he turns and faces the unexpected attack. With no time to react, he's hit by a kick. With a smirk, the masked figure seems to be enjoying themselves. Managing to defend himself, he blocks the opponent's strike. After the impact, he slides back and prepares to fight, but he's shocked, as the attack had no effect at all. Entering the barrier, he's transported to a different location. The man explains that the barrier works like a fishing trap. Now he realizes he's completely trapped inside this isolated area. Repeating the options, the man tells him to choose between surrendering or running. Taking a fighting stance, he prepares for the inevitable confrontation. At that exact moment, Seo feels a small vibration run through his body. Coming from far away, he hears a familiar voice, though there's no actual sound. Without hesitating, the man starts running away from the area, running non-stop. Seo realizes the energy came from the direction of his home. With a determined look, he decides he needs to get away from his mother. He then realizes they haven't captured her yet, and Seolhwa is there. Even though he's the priority, he knows his mother is the second target. Making a plan, he decides to create a distraction for Seolhwa to escape. Jagwang tries to attack Seo, who dodges. Praising his opponent, Jagwang says that Seo Choi has great reflexes. Taking a quick step, he moves in to continue his attack. Starting to fight, the two exchange a series of punches and kicks. Realizing his strength, Seo Choi notices he's much stronger. The two clash, releasing a large amount of energy in the process. Blocking a blow, he protects himself while analyzing the current situation. The man then says the fight wasn't one-on-one. Seeing the other person's energy, Seo realizes the danger he's in. Worried, he says he doesn't want to fight there so as not to hurt anyone. With a smile, he explains that the barrier protects the humans outside. Looking to the side, Seo understands that everyone inside the barrier is asleep. With a punch, he says that Seo Choi should have surrendered already, and Jagwang attacks Seo, causing a huge impact on the street. Grabbing his fist, Seo Choi says he doesn't need to hold back anymore. Holding the enemy, he prepares his next move. Surprised, Jagwang finds himself unable to escape his grip. Using his technique, he gets ready to hurl his opponent away. With a huge explosion, he slams the enemy into the ground. Meanwhile, the masked figure silently watches the entire fight. He then warns him that he chose not to kill him with his own hands. Sitting on the ground, Jagwang says that won't stop him from fighting. Responding seriously, Seo Choi warns that he can't guarantee he'll hold back again. Gritting his teeth, Jagwang gets angry at the boy's response. Charging forward at high speed, he rushes Seo Choi with everything he's got. With a powerful kick, he strikes Seo, but Seo doesn't even seem to feel the attack. Surprised, Jagwang doesn't understand how he stopped the blow. Without wasting time, he starts attacking Seo Choi with a barrage of strikes. Shocked, he realizes his attacks have no effect on him. With a precise punch, Seo hits his opponent's face. The impact of the blow sends Jagwang flying, causing a huge explosion. Looking back, he stares at the masked figure watching everything. He then realizes the person isn't going to fight, just watch. Taking a step, he warns that he won't hesitate to attack her if necessary. The masked figure then moves. Lying on the ground, Jagwang says he'll handle everything himself. Without a word, the masked figure tells him to summon something. Furious, Jagwang yells at her to summon it and stop stalling. Watching the argument, Seo tries to understand what's happening. Having no idea, he just watches the two of them fight, but he knew exactly what he needed to do at that crucial moment. Analyzing the situation, he realizes the masked person is the strongest. Not understanding the strategy, he decides to attack quickly while he can. The masked figure then uses her talismans, summoning 100 powerful spirits. Giving an order, the masked figure commands her spirits to attack. Suddenly, Seo is trapped by chains of blue energy. Trying to break free, he struggles, but the chains are too strong. Just then, a large pillar of energy erupts forcefully from the ground. With a swift strike, he hits the top of her head. He then realizes his protective field against beasts worked. She understands that exorcism talismans don't work on demons. Activating his power, a goblin mask begins to form on him. Advancing with his weapon, he attacks with a powerful horizontal slash. Seeing that she retreated, he realizes his attack missed her. Coming to a conclusion, he understands that her barrier has a limit. Joining her hands, she begins to chant a new spell. Analyzing his options, he tries to figure out the barrier's weakness. Finishing the chant, She invokes a new attack technique. With a serious expression, Seo listens to what the other has to say. Holding up 3 fingers, he explains that 3 chief shamans and 2 assistants are surrounding them. Explaining the tactic, he shows that the shamans themselves are the axes of the barrier. At this, Seolhwa says they just need to take down half of them to break the force field. Seeing the 2 women on the sofa, he warns that the situation isn't simple, warning them of the danger. He says their powers are different from demons. He then reveals that the shaman's arts were created solely to hunt demons. He compares the fight to a trap, saying it's a matter of compatibility. Mentioning the 3 chiefs, he warns that they can fight special demons. Since the fight is certain, he proposes that the 2 girls face one of them. Detailing the strategy, he'll take one shaman while the 2 of them face the other. Confidently, he starts to say that he knows everyone's location and powers, but Seolhwa interrupts him, reminding him that he sealed all of his own powers. Realizing the flaw in the plan, he's left speechless, completely caught off guard. Solmi then says that with few options, the mission has become much more difficult. Seolhwa comments that they aren't the only ones worried about the civilians around here. Leaning against the door, the boy says they can't fight properly here either. He then reveals that their obsession is so great, they would cover up deaths. Solmi then asks why they want to capture the boy so badly. Revealing the reason, he says the shamans have also waited 666 years for this. Not understanding, Solmi says the absence of demons brought peace to humans. He continues, saying that human civilization had its golden age without demons. Correcting himself, he says it was the golden age for most of them. With the city in the background, he narrates how civilians built all of this on their own. After that, the shamans were forgotten and became just an ancient superstition. He explains that today's shamans feel a huge inferiority complex. With a smile, he predicts that in 6 months, they will laugh at human despair. On that day, they will stop being a legend and once again become the rulers. He says they lost prestige with the government, and that's why they're acting this way. Capturing the leader is the only way to reassert their authority over humans. Solmi is incredulous, questioning if the shamans really don't care about the civilians. Suddenly, a column of energy explodes on top of a nearby building. Hearing the noise, Seolhwa turns and asks what just happened. Shocked, he recognizes the energy and questions if the convergence of the 100 has been opened. On the rooftop, the masked figure slams the ground, activating one of her powerful abilities. The first technique involves reciting ancient scriptures to extract the power contained within them. Using this method, most shamans can access amplified energy. The second ability, however, is much rarer, the invocation of a deity. To do this, the shaman uses their own body as a vessel for the entity. Before him then appears a divine general, a deity summoned directly from the heavens. For the first time, Siu faces the overwhelming presence of such a powerful deity. Just then, something inside him begins to resonate with the energy that has appeared.